Salute, salute. We got breaking news on the Epstein files, guys, as well as um the government shutdown. Hold on, let me get this right. Salute, salute. What's up, Miss Pooh Bear? Salute, salute. Shout out to everybody in the building, man. What's up, y'all? Yeah, we most definitely got breaking news, guys, on the Epstein files as well as the government shutdown. This is Caroline Levitt, basically speaking on the new emails that have been leaked. Well, not leaked, but put out in the Epstein files, guys. Double tap that screen. Most definitely get those likes up. Shout out to the love. What's up, Miss Shireen? How you doing? Quick question, Mahel. Can everything news go on Twitch, sir? It can, but I'm going to just keep it over here for right now, Miss Pooh Bear.
And we are going to get to my remarks in Q&A as always, but I do have the FBI director with me here, Kash Patel. You all know him well, and he's here to provide an update for you all with respect to China. As you know, President Trump had a very successful meeting on his trip to Asia with President Xi, where they discussed the need for China to crack down on fentanyl production and distribution, which ultimately makes its way here to the United States of America. And the FBI director recently traveled to China following President Trump's meeting to meet with his counterpart in Beijing. And he has a really positive announcement for the American people to share. So the president wanted me to bring the FBI director out to share that with all of you today. So Kash, please, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Caroline. As Caroline mentioned, we have some tremendous news thanks to President Donald J. Trump once again for the American people. As soon as the President of the United States took office, he issued a mandate to rid America of the scourge that is fentanyl, a drug that has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. Thanks to his leadership and direct engagements with China, we set up a framework to execute that mission 8 months ago. Attorney General Bondi immediately thereafter took steps to engage her counterpart in China at the Ministry of Public Security. Pursuant to their direct discussions, as the FBI director designated to run counterpoint on this, along with the Secretary of State Rubio and Ambassador Perdue and the team here at the White House, we set forward a path to implement the policy needed to crush the plague of fentanyl. Deputy Attorney General Blanche and our teams have been hard at work ever since, ultimately culminating in my trip to Beijing last week. This was only possible due to President Trump's historic engagement with President Xi just a few short weeks ago that set the stage for today's announcement. At that meeting, the leaders reached an agreement. But just to put this in frame for the American people, a reminder here that nearly 100,000 people died of fentanyl overdoses just last year alone.
Get the lights up.
Here, this year, under this president, the FBI has seized 1,900 kilograms of fentanyl so far. That is a 31% increase from the same time period last year. To put it in perspective, that's enough fentanyl to kill 127 million Americans. Fentanyl precursors are what makes up fentanyl. While we, the interagency, the Department of Justice, have been fighting hard to seize and stop drug traffickers, we must attack fentanyl precursors, the ingredients necessary to make this lethal drug. That was the sole purpose of my trip to China, to eliminate these precursors. And if successful, we would suffocate the drug trafficking organization's ability to manufacture fentanyl in places like Mexico. This was the first time an FBI director has been to China in over a decade and received the audience with his counterpart to address this matter directly. And again, thanks to President Trump's direct engagement with President Xi, the government of China committed fully to my engagement there on the ground in Beijing at a level never seen before. While at Ministry of Public Security headquarters, I met with my counterpart at MPS, where the Chinese government agreed on a plan to stop fentanyl precursors. What does that mean? The People's Republic of China has fully designated and listed all 13 precursors utilized to make fentanyl. Furthermore, they have agreed to control 7 chemical subsidiaries that are also utilized to produce this lethal drug. Effective immediately, essentially, President Trump has shut off the pipeline that creates fentanyl that kills tens of thousands of Americans. These substances are now banned, and they will no longer be utilized by the Mexican drug trafficking organizations or any other DTOs around the world to make this drug. This historic achievement has saved tens of thousands of lives. This historic achievement would not have been possible without the tremendous team of President Trump, the Attorney General, the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Ambassador Perdue in China, whose ground-level engagements were imperative to achieving this result. This is yet another example of how President Trump defends the American people, provides security for the American people, and puts the American people first. This is a historic first-of-its-kind achievement by any president to stop the scourge of fentanyl, and it should be championed by every single American. This achievement will save lives. We are thankful for President Trump's steadfast leadership, and this FBI will fearlessly follow in his footsteps to ensure that this mission of safeguarding the American public is achieved every single day. Thank you. Thanks, Caroline.
Cash. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay. Thank you again, Director Patel. Before we
had Cash Patel say that basically the FBI and Trump have reached a deal with China to slow down the production of fent, guys. They trying to bring an end to this. They trying to slow it down. Double tap that screen, guys. Get the likes up. That's how you hit the like button. Double tapping the screen of your mobile device or clicking those 3 dots and hitting the thumbs up. They also, Caroline is finna tell us about them releasing brand new Epstein emails, guys. Y'all been hollering release the files. Well, it look like they may be coming. Let's get those likes up. Double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device or click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up. This is Everything News, and we most definitely report on Everything News, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new.
I do have one quick scheduling announcement. Tomorrow, President Trump will be joined by the First Lady in the East Room for an executive order signing aimed at expanding opportunities for education, career development, housing, and other resources for young people transitioning from foster care to adulthood. This is part of the First Lady's Fostering the Future efforts, which are a Be Best initiative. In other news, the Democrats dragged on the government shutdown for 43 days, the longest shutdown in U.S. history. But tonight, thanks to Republicans, the White House is very hopeful that this shutdown is going to come to an end. The damage caused by the Democrats with this reckless government shutdown cannot be forgotten. It is entirely the fault of the Democrat Party. Just look at the vote count. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees have missed their paychecks. Tens of billions in wages and benefits were withheld, impacting vulnerable families. Millions of low-income Americans missed their SNAP benefits. Nearly 20,000 flights at airports across the country were delayed due to staffing shortages, causing Americans to miss family events, vacations, and work obligations. According to Airlines for America, an estimated 5.2 million travelers have had their flights disrupted over the course of the Democrat shutdown. And our economy has lost billions and billions of dollars in economic activity over the course of this shutdown, hurting consumer sentiment and crushing the travel and hospitality industries. According to a CBO estimate, the Democrat shutdown could end up decreasing fourth quarter economic growth by 2 whole percentage points. The Democrat shutdown made it extraordinarily difficult for economists, investors, and policymakers at the Federal Reserve to receive critical government data. The Democrats may have permanently damaged the federal statistical system, with October CPI and jobs reports likely never being released. And all of that economic data released will be permanently impaired, leaving our policymakers at the Fed flying blind at a critical period. It's hard to recap all of this without asking a simple question: why? Why have the Democrats put the American people through this pain for 43 days in a row? And it feels like Groundhog Day being up here again talking about this Democrat shutdown? And the answer to that question is pure partisan politics. They started this shutdown with a ridiculous demand to force taxpayer-funded healthcare benefits to illegal aliens who broke into our country. Even after it was clear President Trump and Republicans would never force American taxpayers to pay for free healthcare for illegals. In fact, President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill fixed that problem. The Democrats kept dragging this reckless government shutdown on for weeks longer to boost their turnout in an election, perhaps one may guess. That's because the Democrats are totally captured by their far left-wing base who only care about attacking President Trump, even if it means hurting innocent Americans in our country. The Democrats' weakness and their unwillingness to buck the fringe members of their party dragged this harmful shutdown on for 7 weeks and inflicted massive pain onto the American public. But let's be clear, the clean CR being voted on today in the House of Representatives that will lead to the reopening of the federal government is what President Trump and Republicans have supported from day one. Our troops, air traffic controllers, and federal employees will be back to receiving their regular paychecks. Families in need will get back to receiving their food purchasing assistance, and the people's government will soon be back open for business. President Trump looks forward to finally ending this devastating Democrat shutdown with his signature, and we hope that signing will take place later tonight. On another matter, I want to address the affordability issue that's received a great deal of media attention this past week, which is ironic because it didn't receive that much attention when Joe Biden was here and inflation was at a record high 9%, the worst inflation crisis in modern American history. And President Trump won a landslide election in part to address the affordability issues created by Joe Biden and the Democrats. And that's exactly what President Trump has done since day one of his administration. Since the first day in office and every day since, the Trump administration has taken aggressive action to fix the Biden-created cost of living issues. The notion that the same Democrats who just shut down the federal government to sabotage our economy, rob people of their paychecks, and also helped Joe Biden ratchet up inflation to 9%, are now suddenly affordability champions, that notion is completely absurd. And it's something only the liberal media would have the gall to push. But the reality is that President Trump and his administration have done so much to lower prices and increase the economic prosperity of the American people. And this president and his team of amazing economic advisors are going to keep working on this issue every single day. In less than 10 short months, President Trump signed the largest middle-class tax cuts in American history, including no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security, which will guarantee that next year Americans are going to put more money back into their pockets. The president has completely unleashed American energy dominance to help bring gasoline prices to the lowest in 5 years, and we expect them to continue to decrease. And it has also lowered energy costs overall. There is more work to do, but again, the president's deregulatory and pro-American energy agenda is absolutely going to continue to drive down prices. This formula worked in the president's first term, and we expect that it's going to work again. And this is key because we know energy costs are the #1 driver of inflation. Again, just look at what Joe Biden did to our energy industry over the past 4 years of his administration, and look at what happened to inflation as a result. Everything became more expensive. To lower prescription drug prices and healthcare costs, the president has been working around the clock on this issue. He is obsessed with negotiating these good deals on behalf of the American people to bring down pharmaceutical costs and drug costs for Americans. And he has done so on a number of fronts. You have seen him discuss that in the Oval Office several times. To fuel small businesses, lower their costs, and incentivize hiring, the Trump administration has already cut 30 unnecessary regulations for every new one on the books, which we know will save.
Let's take time to double tap that screen, guys, and hit the like button. We should have well over 100 likes with the amount of people in the building, guys. We should have 200 or 300 likes by now. All you have to do is double tap the screen of your mobile device, guys, if you're on a cell phone, or click those 3 dots in the right-hand corner. Hit that thumbs up, guys. Let's get the likes up. This is Caroline Levitt, on everything everything from the shutdown to the FBI to these brand new Epstein emails that have just been released, guys. Yes, brand new Epstein documents have been released. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you are new, guys. Subscribe.
Employers and small businesses across the country thousands of dollars in regulatory burdens. All of these pro-Trump policies are working, and they will continue to work. Wages are rising at the fastest pace of the start of a presidential administration in 60 years. The cost of the typical new mortgage is down by nearly $3,000 per year. There's much work to do, and this administration will continue to do it. But President Trump has already made great progress in cleaning up the economic disaster that was created by Joe Biden. With that, I will take your questions today, and in our new media seat, we have Bev Turner, who works for a new outlet, a UK outlet, but based here in Washington, D.C., GB News. Bev, thank you for being here today. Why don't you kick us off?
Thank you, Caroline. So the clock is ticking on the Friday deadline by which the BBC must retract and apologise for their malicious edit of the president in the documentary shown last year. The recently resigned Director General of the BBC yesterday described the organisation as the very best of society and blamed the enemies of the BBC for this outcome. Also yesterday, a senior government minister launched a fierce defence of the channel in the House of Commons, saying that the broadcaster remains a light on the hill for people all over the world. So, does the president feel that the network is taking the situation seriously? Does he believe that they've shown sufficient regret? Does this strain the relationship between the president and the prime minister? And given that the organisation is publicly funded, is the president prepared to bankrupt the BBC in his pursuit of truth and justice?
Well, thank you, Bev. There's a lot of questions in one there. I will say I know the president has a very good relationship with Prime Minister Starmer. You have been there. You've seen them in their interactions. You've questioned both leaders in your time joining us when we've gone to the United Kingdom a few different times now. However, he has always been very frank when he disagrees with leaders, even whom he has a good relationship with. And the BBC, being a fair news organization, is definitely an outlet. I think these two leaders would disagree. The president has made it very clear that this is a leftist propaganda machine that is unfortunately subsidized by British taxpayers, and he thinks that's extremely unfortunate for the great people of the United Kingdom and Great Britain. And I think that the president was deeply concerned by the editing, the purposeful and dishonest editing of his speech that was so clearly fake news, and he rightfully dubbed that term many years ago, and this is a classic example of that. We see it in the United States all the time. We see it now in the United Kingdom. As you know, the president's external legal counsel has filed a lawsuit against the BBC. We expect that to continue, and whether they apologize or not is up to them. Thanks for being here, Bev. Ouija.
Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
I have your statement about the new Epstein emails that have been
Go with the Epstein
released by
emails, guys.
Democrats. Separate from why you believe the emails were made public, can you address their substance? Did the president ever spend hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep. And this email you refer to with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported on in this room, so I will go ahead and say it, Virginia Giuffre. And it was CBS's own reporting, Ouija, that recently wrote that Miss Giuffre maintained, and God rest her soul, that she maintained that there was nothing inappropriate she ever witnessed, that President Trump was always extremely professional and friendly to her. And so I think it's a question worth asking the Democrat Party, and you should all go ask them after this briefing, of why they chose to redact that name of a victim who has already publicly made statements about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and is unfortunately no longer with us. Mary.
Thank you, Kelly. Two questions on this. In the interest of transparency, why not just go ahead, release the full files on Epstein, get this all over with?
This administration has done more with respect to transparency when it comes to Jeffrey.
Let's take time to double tap that that screen, guys. Get the likes up. It's 1,300 people in the building. We only got 144 likes. All you have to do is double tap the screen of your mobile device. Double tap that screen or click those 3 dots. Hit that thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. This is Caroline Levitt of the White House talking about the Epstein files.
Epstein than any administration ever. In fact, this administration, the Department of Justice, has turned over tens of thousands of documents to the American people. We are cooperating and showing support for the House Oversight Committee. That's part of the reason you are seeing these documents that were released today, because of the House Oversight Committee's and Republicans' efforts to get these out to the public. This administration also moved, the Department of Justice also moved to unseal grand jury testimony, which we know, unfortunately, a judge declined those requests. So this administration has done more than any, and it just shows how this is truly a manufactured hoax by the Democrat Party. For now, they're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases. They care about trying to score political points against President Trump, as we have, of course, seen with this government shutdown. And this entire thing, again, it's not a coincidence to the American people at home. There are no coincidences in Washington, D.C. And it is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government. This is another distraction campaign by the Democrat and the liberal media, and it's why I'm being asked questions about Epstein instead of the government reopening because of Republicans and President Trump.
But given your interest in transparency, Caroline, why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency? Doesn't that show the level of transparency when we are willing to sit down with members of Congress and address their concerns? That is that's a defining factor of transparency. Having discussions with members of Congress about various issues, and I'm not going to detail conversations that took place in the Situation Room in the press briefing room. Reagan.
I have a question about the government shutdown.
Thank you. I'm glad someone does.
First, on the government shutdown, the shutdown deal reverses the administration's reps, and it also prohibits more from happening until the end of January. I'm wondering if the president has input on this element of the deal, and if he's at all disappointed that's going to reverse the downsizing of government that they did during the shutdown.
I mean, look, I think it's about 6,000 workers total. When you look at that in comparison to the reduction in the federal workforce that this administration has done since January to get rid of the waste, the fraud, the abuse, and to reduce the size of our federal bureaucracy, we've done a lot of great work on that front, and we will continue to. But obviously, the president's main priority was to reopen the federal government and get people back to work, and that's what this deal accomplishes.
There's been reports in Israeli media that the U.S. is considering building a temporary military base on the Gaza border. Can you confirm these reports?
So I had a conversation directly with the reporter who wrote this article, and this article was based on a single piece of paper, an inquiry that somebody in the Department of Navy made about an idea that may happen in the future. And this reporter deemed that as an official plan and ran with a story that the United States is looking into it. I checked with the highest levels of the United States federal government. This is not something the United States is interested in being engaged in. It's not something we are currently involved in right now that we will be funding. And the president has been very clear he doesn't want to see boots on the ground with respect to what's happening in the Middle East. We've made great peace. We've made great progress with the peace plan in Gaza, and we want to continue to see that move forward. But I put a comment in that story for a reason. And sometimes we see reporters take a piece of paper like this and just deem it as official policy. And sometimes that misleads people a little bit. Sure.
There's been a question about UK intelligence sharing regarding the drunken traditions involving Afghans militants. How will that affect this military operation? There's been a lot of discussion about the high caliber of the intelligence that has been provided before any of these military actions have taken place.
I've seen that report. Oh, hello. I've seen that report. I'm familiar with the reporting, but we don't comment on intelligence matters, classified intelligence matters, as you know. As for the Trump administration's position on our narco-terrorist campaign in the Caribbean, it is going to continue, and the president has made it very clear he's not going to allow terrorists to bring illegal drugs that kill American citizens into our great country. Sure, John. I'll go to John and then Zolan. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Trump has talked about sending out $2,000 checks to U.S. citizens. Earlier this year,
shout out to Blessed to be Blessed, blessed to be blessings for being a member over here for 14 months. She says, congratulations, Mayor. Thank you.
Also talked about sending a Doge dividend. That didn't materialize. Should U.S. Citizens expect a $2,000 proposal? Is the White House committed to making that happen?
The White House is committed to making that happen, yes. And we are currently exploring all legal options to get that done. I don't have a timeline for you or any further details, but I can confirm for you that the president made it clear he wants to make it happen. And so his team of economic advisors are looking into it. And when we have an update, we'll provide one.
So they're saying that Trump is looking to send each American $2,000, guys. They saying it's most definitely a thing. Okay. Shout out to Blessed to be Blessings for that 5. She says congrats already.
You said at the top that one of the costs of the government shutdown was that people missed their SNAP benefits. Can you explain then why the administration went to court to fight the funding of food stamps and SNAP benefits?
So recipients missed their SNAP benefits because the Democrats shut the government down. And they forced the administration to tap into a contingency fund that did not even fund the full entirety of this program. And so then you had an unhinged judge who was trying to dictate from the bench what the executive branch has to pay for and where that money has to come from. That is judicial overreach at its finest. And so that's why the administration pushed back on that. We can't have the judicial branch telling the executive branch that we need to rob the Children Nutrition Fund, which is what this judge was trying to do, to pay for SNAP benefits. That's completely inappropriate and it's unconstitutional, and we've been proven right with that legal argument. But now the good news is, again, thanks to Republicans and in several hours, President Trump, the government is going to be reopened, and SNAP recipients are going to receive their full benefits, which is what President Trump has always wanted to do. Stephen.
Why also did you need the judicial process for that? I mean, during this shutdown, didn't the administration have a responsibility to tap into any of those reserves to ensure that essentially
we did tap into it. We did tap into the contingency fund. And then the judge told us, no, you have to get more money from a children's nutrition fund. And we felt that was judicial overreach. You shouldn't tell the president which fund he has to rob because the Democrats are holding the country hostage by shutting down the federal government.
Oh, wow.
Stephen, go ahead.
Well, if the president is considering a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell?
Again, he's answered this repeatedly. It's not something he's talking about or even thinking about at this moment in time. I can assure you of that. Stephen.
Caroline, I've got 2 questions about New York for you.
Sure.
First,
you always do.
Mayor-elect
ran for the New York Post.
Mayor-elect Mamdani, he said that he plans to reach out to President Trump and that, quote, this is a relationship that would be critical. Does the White House have a response to this planned outreach?
It's the first time I'm hearing of it. I'll let the president respond himself to that comment by Mr. Mamdani.
My second question, Jack Schlossberg, the grandson of President Kennedy, announced today that he's running for Congress. He, in the recent past, has referred to his uncle, the HHS secretary, as, quote, a rabid dog, and he has said that the Trump administration is, quote, the most corrupt in American history. Does the White House have a comment on this sort of comment from a rising star in the Democratic Party?
I don't even think such ridiculous comments are worth responding to. Obviously, those things are not true. And Secretary Kennedy is doing a phenomenal job bringing transparency and the gold standard of science back to our healthcare system. Eamon.
Thank you, Caroline. The president's hosting a number of Wall Street CEOs for dinner tonight here at the White House. Can you give us the names of the CEOs who are going to be here and give us a sense of what the president's message to Wall Street is going to be tonight?
I don't have a full list for you in front of me, Eamon. I know you've reported on some names and we've helped you navigate whether those names were truthful or false. But I know the president actually plans to bring some of you into the dinner tonight. So you'll see for yourself in several hours if that's okay with you.
And there's been some reporting that the White House is frustrated with Bill Pulte and the rollout of this proposal for a 50-year mortgage. mortgage. Can you tell us if the White House is frustrated with that rollout and if the White House still supports the idea of a 50-year mortgage for Americans?
This is a proposal that the president himself has commented on. I would refer you to the president's statements, and it's something that the administration is discussing and seriously looking into. Sure.
Thanks, Kelly.
Danny, and then go ahead.
Thank you. Some Democratic members of Congress have invited Britain's former Prince Andrew to testify on the Epstein scandal. I'm just wondering if President Trump thinks that former Prince Andrew should indeed come and testify to Congress on that.
I haven't spoken to him about that specific matter, but I can ask him and get back to you.
On the government shutdown, the president and House Republicans have made clear they were not going to negotiate healthcare strategy or policy while the government was shut down. Now, assuming that it reopens tonight, is the president intending to invite any Democrats over to have negotiations over these subsidies or any other plan to bring down the cost of health insurance?
I will just add that, as you pointed out, the Democrats were holding our country hostage to try to negotiate on a healthcare system that they created. Obamacare, as it's famously called, is a system the Democrats created. It is a broken system. It has driven up healthcare costs dramatically in this country. And now they shut the government down to try to fix that system they broke. It doesn't make any sense to us, which is why the president said that's a completely untenable position. However, once the government reopens, the president, as he's always maintained, is absolutely open to having conversations about healthcare. And I think you'll see the president putting forth some really good policy proposals the Democrats should take very seriously to fix, again, the system that they broke. You can't trust the same people who broke the system to fix it. And so the American people will continue to hear from the president on this issue.
And one follow-up on the question about the $2,000 payments of tariff revenue. The president had also talked about using tariffs to bring down the national debt. Would this be in lieu of that? Like, this is now the new way to maybe to use that tariff revenue?
No, the president put out a statement on this clarifying he wants to do both things with the tariff revenue that he's bringing into this country. Trillions of dollars are expected to continue to pour in. And it's part of the reason that the Supreme Court case is so vital for our country's future, to restore our manufacturing industry in this country, to protect our national security, to continue to allow the president to use tariffs as leverage to negotiate economic deals that are good for our national security. And that revenue can then be used for various reasons, to pay down our debt and also perhaps to give these rebate checks back to Americans, which, again, the White House is exploring the legal options of how we can get that done. Catherine, go ahead.
Caroline, Viktor Orban said this week that President Trump has promised Hungary some kind of financial shield. Do you have any details on how that would be structured or what that would look like?
I don't, but I'm happy to check with the National Security Council and get back to you.
One more. You recently said you'd check with President Trump about why he needs to get an MRI on his recent trip to Walter Reed. Do you have any more detail on that?
I do, and I'm glad you asked. As stated in the memo provided on October 10th, President Trump received advanced imaging at Walter Reed Medical Center as part of his routine physical examination. The full results were reviewed by attending radiologists and consultants, and all agreed that President Trump remains in exceptional physical health, which I know all of you will see with your own eyes later this evening when he opens up his dinner to the press, and perhaps you will see him when he signs the bill to reopen the federal government. So stay tuned on plans for that. Thank you, everyone.
All right, so that was so much for Caroline Leavitt, guys, and her take on what's going on at the White House, guys, with Trump. Hold on, we got more. We're not done yet. When it comes to these Epstein files, hold on. Where is it? Hold up. All right, here we go. Check this out.
A new blistering response for Democrats after they released emails written by Jeffrey Epstein that referenced President Trump. Here's Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
It is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government.
Why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief?
They're going to go over a little bit of what we watched and tell us some things that we don't know.
In one email from 2011, Epstein writes, "The dog that hasn't barked is Trump." redacted victim spent hours at my house with him.
This is
House
Trump.
Oversight Republicans earlier questioned why Democrats redacted the name, saying, quote, it's because this victim, Virginia Giuffre, publicly said that she never witnessed wrongdoing by President Trump. We have CNN's Caitlin Collins, who is live at the White House. Caitlin, we heard Levitt address this meeting at the White House that's expected to happen today. It does include Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. What have you learned about it?
Yeah, Brianna, two things stood out to me from that briefing. Obviously, Caroline Levitt was saying that they believe these emails prove that President Trump did nothing wrong. Obviously, he's being accused of any wrongdoing. We made that clear in our reporting this email. They just shed new light on Jeffrey Epstein mentioning Donald Trump multiple times in private correspondence over the span of about 15 years.
Do y'all think Trump did nothing wrong, guys? Let me know. Continue to hit that like button by double tapping that screen, guys, or clicking those 3 dots, hitting that thumbs up. Yeah, man, this is crazy. Leaked Epstein emails, guys. The Republicans and Trump are blaming it on the Democrats, guys, saying that they are the ones that leaked these emails. Do y'all believe that?
They did not deny that Donald Trump spent time with Virginia Giuffre at Jeffrey Epstein's house. That is obviously what Jeffrey Epstein was insinuating in that email to Ghislaine Maxwell from April 2011. But obviously they were critical, highly critical of Democrats on the House Oversight Committee for releasing these emails that they got.
Remember, we have been hearing reports and them saying Trump's name appears in these files several times, and people have been saying that's why they haven't came out. But I guess the Democrats, if what Trump and them saying is true, are going to get the information out to the people
as a result of that bipartisan subpoena. But it was a pretty short briefing, Brianna. Obviously, it was about 1:25 or so when the press secretary came out with the FBI director, Kash Patel, who gave an opening statement that was unrelated. It had to do with fentanyl and China. He left without taking questions. And then Caroline Levitt delivered her own opening statement before taking questions. So relatively few questions in that briefing there. But obviously, several of them were about these new emails from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell and to the author, Michael Wolff. And the other thing that stood out is that meeting that we exclusively reported on here at CNN, where the White House was hosting Lauren Boebert, a Republican congresswoman of Colorado, who has said, yes, she agrees that the White House and the administration should have to release all of their files related to Jeffrey Epstein that are inside the Justice Department. They described it kind of as a routine briefing, as you heard her saying there about transparency, that when members of Congress want to be briefed, that they should be briefed. Let me tell you, Brianna, it is incredibly unusual for the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, and the FBI Director to brief a single member of Congress. They weren't briefing her because she was the chair of a committee on a pressing matter. If she wanted to talk about the Epstein files, and that is what they talked about, it is unusual to have that high level of Justice Department power sitting down here at the White House with a Republican congresswoman. But what also stood out from that is Caroline Levitt is confirming our reporting that, yes, that meeting did take place. And of course, a question is the White House's effort to try to get some of these Republican members to take their name off of that petition, and whether or not it will be successful, that still remains to be seen. But to describe that as a routine briefing, it is certainly not, Brianna.
Yeah, and as you are certainly aware, because you've reported so many times on meetings, it's not unusual for when the president wants something from someone to have them to the White House for a meeting. So it's really interesting to see. That's something that certainly raises questions. Caitlin, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Boris?
Let's get some perspective now from Dave Ehrenberg, a former state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida. Dave has known Attorney General Pam Bondi for many years. He worked as her drug czar in the Florida Attorney General's office. Dave, thank you so much for being with us. Generally, I wonder what you make of the correspondence that we're seeing between Epstein and his associates.
Boris, good to be with you. I think it's bad for three people in particular. First, Donald Trump, because this is a story that won't end. It's not going to end until the files are released. It's a drip, drip, drip. And there's no indication that President Trump did anything illegal, but his association with Epstein is what it is, and he needs to get in front of this story instead of letting this define him, because he's sitting back and there's just a constant drip of information that makes him look bad and makes his supporters wonder what's going on. And that demand for the release of the files ain't stopping anytime soon. It's just going to increase the clamor for those files to be released. Number two, it makes Ghislaine Maxwell look like the liar she is. And I don't think she's going to get that pardon or commutation of her sentence anytime soon, because she said that she doesn't remember seeing President Trump ever visiting Jeffrey Epstein at the house. Well, the emails show that she does recall that. In that email, she reminds Jeffrey Epstein she remembers when Trump would visit Epstein at the house. And then third, Michael Wolff, who's a journalist, but it looks like he's giving free legal/PR advice to a pedophile. He needs to come clean as to what
is this bad for Trump, guys? Let me know.
There's one email in particular that we don't have context for, in which Epstein mentions Trump. He refers to him as the dog that hasn't barked. And notably, Republicans on the House Oversight Committee identify the person who's redacted in this note as Virginia Giuffre, who has never accused Trump of wrongdoing, but these emails show that Epstein says Trump spent hours with her at my house. I wonder just what you make of that, and the argument from Republicans that redaction in itself is meant to imply something that Giuffre never accused Trump of.
Gillian says it's not bad for Trump. Okay.
It's correct. I do think the Republicans have a point here that the name Virginia Giuffre was redacted, but Virginia Giuffre, in her book and in public statements, has never accused Trump of anything improper, said that he didn't do anything improper. The question is whether or not they spent time at Epstein's home. That's still an open question. And also, Virginia Giuffre has had some issues in the past of credibility, which is why she wasn't called as a witness in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. But the fact that Epstein says that Trump spent hours with Giuffre at the house tells me that there's still more that we don't know. And it is consistent with Trump saying that a reason why he broke off the friendship with Epstein is because Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were poaching employees from Mar-a-Lago, and Virginia Giuffre was one of them.
I wonder what you think that members of the administration, including Attorney General Bondi, are presenting right now to Congresswoman Boebert, given that this discharge petition, at least as of the latest math that we've seen, appears to be on its way to passing the House. It's unlikely to get anywhere in the Senate. Very unlikely President Trump is going to sign it after being so vocal in his opposition of it. But it does put members of Congress on the record. So I wonder what you think she might be being presented with that.
Let's double tap those screen, guys. Let's get those lights up. Double tap the screen of your mobile device.
Not sure. I think it perhaps is just some information on what's in the files that have been kept from the public, perhaps giving her an insider's view because she is a swing vote there and they don't want this stuff to be released, which is a shame because when you have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who were campaigning for it to be released for many months, saying that there's an Epstein list and we need transparency. And then when they get to be in charge of the FBI, they're saying nothing to see here. So you have the base clamoring for the release, and Boebert is known as a MAGA stalwart, and perhaps they think that she was about to join Marjorie Taylor Greene to release the files. So they're trying to placate her, perhaps by showing, hey, there's nothing to see here, no need to release it. But Boris, I don't know if the Senate is going to resist the release of the file after all this stuff is coming out. I mean, there's going to be more and more pressure every day to release these files because this issue is never going to go away until they are given to the public.
Yeah, we'll see how the Senate ultimately handles it. That is, if...
All right, so there was some on these Epstein files. Hold up, guys. Wait, there's more. Hold on. Give me half a second to pull this up, and then we'll get to the government shutdown, guys. Check this out.
Was transferred to a club feds. I wonder if this now further shades the conversation that Ghislaine Maxwell had with Todd Blanche before she was transferred to a club fed style prison where she's treated much better than the high security prison she was in before, the one that the type of people convicted of the type of crimes that she was convicted for usually stay in, the ones that are not transferred to the nicer facilities, obviously nicer being relative. Here's what Ghislaine Maxwell said to Todd Blanche. I think they were, regarding Donald Trump, I think they were friendly like people are in social settings. I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting
This
in
is
any
what
way.
Ghislaine Maxwell
The
said
president
about
was never
Trump, guys.
inappropriate with anybody. Again, this is what she told Blanche in July of this year. The emails between her and Epstein from 2011 suggest something different. Seem to, at least.
Yeah, that's correct. And maybe she carefully worded that. She wasn't in the room, perhaps, when some of this was going on. But she certainly, look, she knows everything that happened. She is a very smart, shrewd woman, and she has the goods. I mean, she really does know what happened. So I think it's a little disingenuous of her to play as though she's still saying she didn't even know Epstein was, abusing young girls or young women. So her whole testimony with Blanche was really, in some ways, suspect from the very start.
I guess there are two questions here, and Ken kind of touched on this. There's one, did Donald Trump himself do anything inappropriate? Was he involved with any of the women? And we haven't, and you correct me if I'm wrong, there has not yet been a woman saying that happened to her with the president. Virginia Giuffre never said that. And then the second question is, did he know about it though? Was he aware of what was happening on that island, on those planes, what Jeffrey Epstein was doing with Ghislaine Maxwell? And has he not been truthful about that awareness since this exploded into the public domain? Julie.
Well, look, there was one woman, in fairness, there was one woman that filed a lawsuit in 2016 claiming that when she was 13 years old that she was raped by both Trump and Epstein. That there was never any evidence presented in it, and the woman just quietly went away, disappeared just days before the election. So we can't, but it was a court document. It was a court lawsuit that was filed. So there's been that out there in the domain, but no, there hasn't been any credible evidence presented that Trump was involved.
But what about what he knew and when?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What about what he knew about it? I mean, I guess that is a more relevant question here today.
Well, I think that what these emails are showing, if nothing else, that he was part of Epstein's world very closely. The emails indicate that he was at Epstein's home. The emails seem to indicate that, that he might even have damaging information about Trump. I mean, there's one email from the author Michael Wolff, which was written just before the election, where Wolff is sort of coaxing Epstein to tell the public what he knows because it would finish him, was the words that Wolff used. Now, Epstein was a fabulist. We know that he exaggerated a lot of things. So just because these are in these, some of this damaging information are in these emails doesn't make it true.
Let me just read that email. This is from Jeffrey Epstein again to the author Michael Wolff. This is from December 15th, 2015. So it's 11 months before the election. He says, I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in a scrum afterwards. This is about a debate. And then Michael Wolff says, if we were able to craft an answer for him, Michael Wolff said that. And then Jeffrey Epstein says this, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? And then Michael Wolff responds with, I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is about to be outlawed in a Trump regime. Julie, remind me exactly what was happening with Jeffrey Epstein in this moment. Was he getting renewed scrutiny? Was he about to be arrested again?
Well, this was when the lawsuits were also coming out against him and Trump. Remember, I just mentioned that woman who sort of went by the name Jane Doe and Katie Johnson. So there was this lawsuit, as I said, that was in the news at the time. So, and the questions were just sort of swirling around him just because of the Access Hollywood tape and the Stormy Daniels event. So there were a lot of questions right around this time about, you know, who he was involved with and what kind of sexual, you know, accusations were being made at the time.
Yeah, just to be fair, this is from 2015. The Access Hollywood tape didn't come out until...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, a little bit later. But yeah, there were still at the time questions about Donald Trump and his propriety. I mean, they'd been dogging him for years. They were definitely coming up during the campaign in those early days. There was the Megyn Kelly dust up just a couple months earlier. So it was definitely out there, those questions.
Well, and also I just want to add the other one from Michael Wolff, not the one you read. There's another one that he wrote that's similar, that uses the word, it's right before it was right around this time where he uses the word, this could really finish Trump. So there's another email that wasn't part of the original 3 that were released where he is talking about this around the time of the election.
That's interesting. All right, let's bring in Tara Palmieri, author of Red Letter, the Red Letter on Substack, investigative and political journalist as well. Tara, so the president just posted this on True Social. He says the Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. The Democrats cost our country $1.5 trillion with their recent antics of viciously closing our country, while at the same time putting many at risk, and they should pay a fair price. There should be no deflections to Epstein or anything else, and any Republicans involved should focus only on opening up our country and fixing the massive damage caused by the Democrats. How worried is the White House? How worried is the president about this Epstein stuff, these emails, and what could come?
Yeah, well, we know that when he says there's nothing going on there, that there are problems. And just last night, even before all of these emails leaked out, I was hearing that House members were talking about the fact that they could not, possibly vote nay on this one once the bill was actually on the floor. So there were already Republican members starting to break ranks. And I think these emails just apply more pressure, and you can see a really desperate White House that is responding that way. I mean, the New York Times is reporting that he's calling Lauren Boebert, he's calling Nancy Mace, who is running for governor in South Carolina, and would need his endorsement to clear in the primary. But he is working every angle he can to try to get them to remove their names from the discharge petition so that the bill won't come to the floor. Because once it's on the floor, it's going to be really, really hard for these members not to vote for it. And he's in a really tough spot. And I think this whole idea of flood the zone, just dump all of the emails right now, get all the journalists, in a tizzy looking through all of it. It reeks of desperation, frankly.
What about the reaction among Donald Trump's base? They had been so loud in a demand for the Epstein files to know who knew what, to hold those accountable. And it seems like some of that died off over the summer during the shutdown. Where are they today?
Yeah, I think that they were following him. I mean, his believers tend to trust him when he says there's nothing there, it's a hoax. Where are they today? I think that there is universal support for releasing the files. If there's nothing there, then show it. There's just so much mystery around it, too. And for so long, he said that it's a cabal of elitist Democrats. So they want to see that, too. I think that there is bipartisan desire for justice in this story, despite what he says. I just think that you're not hearing it from the loudest voices online anymore on the right, because they now work in his administration. They're Kash Patel, Pam Bondi.
Yeah. I wonder where do they think the threat is coming, the White House? What do they think might happen if Donald Trump is further implicated?
I think it obviously weakens his presidency. I mean, he's only got, another year until the midterm elections when he will truly be a lame duck president.
Will this affect
This is
Trump,
really
guys?
damaging. The idea that the president is that closely associated with a pedophile ring. I mean, this is you have to think the UK ambassador to the US had to step down for much less. I mean, this is really something to see how closely associated it is in all of his emails. Sorry about that.
Don't worry about it.
Someone who's trying to make it on TV. And so, you know, this is just, I think it's political. It's kryptonite. I don't know how anyone can survive this, especially if the Epstein files reveal an even closer association. And it's a drip.
Gillian, I think the people are pushing so hard, they're going to have to do something. I don't know exactly what they're going to do if Trump is off in them. They've been trying to stall them from coming out for the longest, but the people are pushing for it so hard. They're going to have to do something.
Drip, Katie, like it's the worst way to handle a story. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more there. There really is. Even Virginia Giuffre's book, she didn't even share all of it, all of the people that she was, you know, trafficked to. It was 36 men. There's so many more. And that means that her files, her depositions, that men paid a lot of money to lawyers to try to redact their names. If those files are actually released unredacted, I mean, it will open up a whole new can of worms.
Let's go. All right. So with that being said, since we are on this Trump topic with the Epstein files, as well as the government shutdown, guys, there was a new elect that was sworn in today by Mike Johnson, guys, a woman. And she most definitely said that she, in her speech of acceptance, she will most definitely vote yes to release the Epstein files. Let's see what she has to say about all this. All right.
Will Representative-elect Grijalva and members of the Arizona delegation present themselves in the well? And all members will rise. And the representative-elect will raise her right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations, you're now a member of the United States Congress.
This is the lady that I was talking about. She says that she will most definitely vote yes to release the Epstein files, guys. Double tap that screen. Get the likes up. She was sworn in today.
Without objection, the gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure to rise today to congratulate our newest colleague and fellow Arizonan on her swearing in as a representative from Arizona's 7th Congressional District, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva. Congresswoman Grijalva has concentrated her career on issues associated and advocating for students and supporting families. As she follows her late father's footsteps, and boy, those are some footsteps, especially with those bolo ties. Wow.
My guy right here look like he either been drinking or he's sick. Y'all see the way he moving and the way he talking? He might have had a 6-pack before he got up there. I'm just saying. Something most definitely going on with him. But that's just my assumption from what I'm seeing.
I have no doubt she will bring to the halls of Congress the same energy that has defined her years of public service. As Dean of the Arizona Congressional Delegation, I wish to congratulate Congressman Grijalva and welcome her to the House.
Am I tripping? Look at his hair like he been sweating. There's something wrong with my guy right here. Maybe he on some medicine or something. I don't want to believe that he might be intoxicated, but there's something going on with this guy right here.
United States House of Representatives. I now yield to my friend from Arizona, Mr. Stanton.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, and thank you to Congressman Gosar, the new Dean of Arizona's State Delegation. It has been a minute since we've all been together on the House floor. Looking for cobwebs around here. As Dean, Congressman Gosar replaces the late Congressman Raul Grijalva, one of the most impactful leaders in Arizona history.
Let's go, Eric.
And now with great pride, I rise today to do something we have...
Hey, guys, can we get these likes up to 400? Double tap that screen, guys. Get the likes up. Double tap your screen if you're on a mobile device, or click those three dots in the right-hand corner. Hit those thumbs up. Man, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. She most definitely said that she will be voting to release the Epstein files, guys.
50 long days to do, exactly 49 days too long, and that is to introduce our colleague from Arizona, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva. Since September 23rd, the people of Arizona have been waiting for this day, and the excuses for the delay have changed seemingly daily. First, they said they need an election certificate, though one isn't required. Then they wanted to make sure there was enough pomp and circumstance. Then we were informed about a non-existent Pelosi precedent. At one point, the speaker went on television and said, quote, "Bless her heart, she is representative-elect. She doesn't know how it works around here." Bless his heart, because here's how it should work. Let's call it the Adelita Grijalva precedent. When the American people vote, this chamber respects their will and seats them immediately. Politics should never come into play. Mr. Speaker, Congresswoman Grijalva is a native Tucsonan, the granddaughter of a bracero who came here from Mexico, the youngest woman ever elected to the Tucson Unified School Board, serving 20 years, then a Pima County supervisor fighting for working families, affordable housing, early child education. She brings that same fight to Congress. The people of Arizona's 7th District placed their trust in her, and today that trust is rewarded. And her first act of Congress will be a powerful one. She will be the 218th and final signature on the discharge petition to force the Trump administration to release the Epstein files.
They fired up about the Epstein files, guys.
And accountability for hundreds of victims abused by rich and powerful men. She is a smart, principled fighter through and through. Mr. Speaker, it is my honor to welcome and introduce to this chamber Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva.
Muchas gracias. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Gracias. Thank you. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much. Thank you to my colleague and friend, Congressman Stanton, for that kind introduction, and to the entire Democratic delegation from Arizona and the delegation that stood here with me that has supported me throughout this process. I rise today the proud granddaughter of a bracero, a hardworking Mexican immigrant who came to this country for a better life. And I stand as the proud daughter of a U.S. congressman, a man who spent his entire life fighting for justice, equity, and dignity for the most vulnerable. From working as a vaquero to serving in Congress in just a single generation, that is the promise of this country. That is the America I want to raise my 3 beautiful children in, Adelina, Raul, and Joaquin. Stand up, baby. Look at them. They, along with my amazing husband Sol and my wonderful mama Ramona, are here with me today. Muchas gracias por su apoyo y tu amor. And thank you to la gente of Southern Arizona for making history, electing me the first Latina, the first Chicana from Arizona to ever go to Congress.
Let's go.
momento es histórico para nuestra comunidad. Es un honor ser la primera latina en representar a Arizona en el Congreso y les aseguro que aunque soy la primera, no será la última. And while we celebrate this moment today, our American promise is under serious threat. Basic freedoms are under attack. Healthcare premiums are skyrocketing. Babies are being ripped away from their parents by masked agents. We can and must do better.
Know what side she on?
What is most concerning is not what this administration has done, but what the majority in this body has failed to do. Hold Trump accountable as a co-equal branch of government that we are.
She's most definitely a Democrat.
It has been 50 days since the people of Arizona's 7th Congressional District elected me to represent them. 50 days that over 800,000 Arizonans have been left without access to the basic services that every constituent deserves. This is an abuse of power. One individual should not be able to unilaterally obstruct the swearing in of a duly elected member of Congress for political reasons. Our democracy only works when everyone has a voice. This includes the millions of people across the country who have experienced violence and exploitation, including Liz Stein and Jessica Michaels, both survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. They are here in the gallery with us this evening. Thank you for being here. Just this morning, House Democrats released more emails showing that Trump knew more about Epstein's abuses than he previously acknowledged. It's past time for Congress to restore its role as a check and balance on this administration and fight for we, the American people. We need to fight for our immigrant communities and veterans. We need to stand up for our public schools, children, and educators. We need to respect tribal sovereignty in our environment. We need to stand up for LGBTQ+ rights because that's what the American people expect us to do. Fight for them. That is why I will sign the discharge petition right now to release the Epstein files. Justice cannot wait another day. Adelante, mi gente. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Under Clause 5 of Rule 20, the chair announces to the House that in light of the administration of the oath of the gentleman from Arizona, the whole number of the House is now 433.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much. Thank you to my colleague and friend, Congressman Stanton, for that kind introduction, and to the entire Democratic delegation from Arizona and the delegation that stood here with me that has supported me throughout this process.
No, we ain't gonna watch the whole one all over again. We just watch what was important. All right, so with this government shutdown going, guys, Johnson, as well as Hakeem Jeffries, most definitely had words about this whole situation. Let's go.
Every Republican in the House, every single one, which doesn't happen very often, voted for the clean government funding bill on September 19th. Will they all vote for this compromise, do you think?
I believe they will. The long national nightmare is almost coming to an end now, the beginning of the end, as I said this morning in my press conference. It was long overdue, and the irony is, Jake, it really was a shutdown about nothing. I mean, what we're voting on is effectively exactly what we offered them several weeks back. We've added some appropriations bills now, which we're in favor of because it's getting us back to the regular order. We'll take care of some other details, but I don't think Chuck Schumer got anything out of this other than a political show, and sadly, I think that's what he was after the whole time.
So a source on today's House GOP conference call said that you told members that you're hoping for a Wednesday House vote to reopen the government. The shutdown, air travel chaos, obviously, is a, you can't predict that.
It's a challenge for us, for sure. I'd like to vote tonight after the Senate is done, but it takes everybody a while to get back. We have people come from the West Coast. We have a member flying in from Guam, so he has 20 hours just to get to the West Coast and then get here. So we've got to get everybody back. We're praying that they can make it through the chaos that all the other American people have been made to suffer through because of this needless political show that the Democrats have been engaging in.
Well, you'll wait until you have the votes before you have the vote.
We need to get everybody back. I mean, everybody in both parties, and I've told them to start the travel earlier today. So I expect and hope that we'll have everybody here.
So the Senate bill is setting a date for a Senate vote on extending the Obamacare subsidies, which are set to expire at the end of the year. You have not committed to a separate House vote on the issue. 13 of your most vulnerable members, as you know, wrote a letter to you saying that after the shutdown, quote, we should immediately turn our focus to the growing crisis of healthcare affordability and the looming expiration of the Enhanced Affordable Care Act premium tax credits. While we did not create this crisis, we now have both the responsibility and the opportunity to address it. That's 13 members. Are you going to listen to them?
Yeah, I've been in contact with those members and all of our members throughout the entire ordeal that we've been going through. This is a very important point. We were always open to sitting down to negotiate and talk through how to reduce healthcare costs. It's a crisis for the American people. The cost have skyrocketed. It's the Democrats who put us into this scenario. Remember, they're the ones that created the ACA. We call it the Unaffordable Care Act, because that's exactly what's been yielded. Since 2010, since they put it into law, premiums have skyrocketed, some estimates 60% overall, and they're continuing to go up.
Well, premiums were skyrocketing before Obamacare, too.
Not at this pace, and the problem is now it's becoming completely unaffordable for more and more people. The Democrat solution is to subsidize the broken system. We would like to go in and look at the root causes of why those costs are so high, and we've been doing that. It's not just talking points. We have had laws signed into law, this Congress, that have begun to chip away at that. There's a lot more yet to do, but we've got to build consensus between the parties. It should be bipartisan. We're looking forward to that.
That's a long-term issue, though, what you're talking about. You're not going to be able to solve this issue of skyrocketing premiums, not just in Obamacare, for everything. Well, premiums are going up in Obamacare, yes. They're also going up for people not in Obamacare, for like me and you.
Well, there's short-term solutions and longer-term solutions. You're right. It's very complicated.
But on the short-term issue of the people with the subsidies, and that's going to expire at the end of the year, will you have a vote on the issue as your 13 Republicans, frontline Republicans, people that you're the speaker because of them?
Yes.
They're in districts that are vulnerable. Sure. Will you have a vote so they can vote?
The very people that you were citing in the letter believe we have to have real reform. So what I'm committed to, and I have all along, this has never changed, is a deliberative process that we do in the House. We have a very small margin. Majorities, whomever has the majority now in this era is going to have a small margin, and so it requires the involvement of a lot of members. See, the problem that I had with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries is Leader Schumer was insisting that I go into a back room, Leader Thune and I go into a back room with he and Jeffries and do a four corners agreement to fix this. It's not possible. It was never appropriate to do that on a short-term funding measure. We needed the month of October, November, December to work through this. And ironically, because of his shenanigans, they've now taken all that time off the clock. So we have a lot more important work to do in a shorter time period.
Congressman Don Bacon, who's retiring, of Nebraska, he's been working with Congressman Tom Suozzi, a moderate Democrat from New York. They're about this exact issue, about reforms on these subsidies, means testing, having the payments directly go to the insurance companies instead of to the businesses than the insurance companies. Is that something you're willing to let come up for a vote?
That's one of many ideas that are on the table. The problem is when you're subsidizing insurance companies, they just jack the rates up even higher. I mean, we've been seeing this over and over and over. So the solution is to again to get at the root causes. I'll give you an example. In the big beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, we had the Medicaid reforms. So as we've discussed many times, what we did was we went in to eliminate the fraud, waste, and abuse and drive down the cost. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, evaluated that and said, you know what, that's right. It will achieve that. It'll save $185 billion for taxpayers because you got ineligible enrollees off the system. We need to do that same thing across the board through healthcare. We tried that in the big beautiful bill when it went over to the Senate in the House version. We included a cost sharing reduction program that would have reduced premiums 12.7% overall on average nationwide. The Democrats fought in the Senate to take it out of the bill. So there are a lot of ideas that we'd like to bring back to the table because that will actually solve the problem and not just subsidize insurance companies.
So you're not committing to bringing up a bill that deals with the Obamacare subsidies before they expire?
I'm not committing to it or not committing to it. What I'm saying is that we do a deliberative process. That's the way this always works, and we have to have time to do that, and we will in a bipartisan fashion.
If something passes the Senate, it would only pass on a bipartisan basis. Yeah. Would you bring it up?
Well, the bill that's going to pass
to extend the subsidies, that later vote.
I can't commit to anything that hasn't even passed through the Senate yet. I mean, I've never done that. I'm very consistent. I've been Speaker for over 2 years, and one of the reasons I've held the gavel is because I don't go out and predetermine outcomes. It's a member-driven institution, as it should be, and I'm really insistent about that. We got to get back to regular order, and that's what we're doing here.
President Trump today on Truth Social said that air traffic controllers should get back to work. He said he's going to recommend a $10,000 bonus for any controllers who took no time off. And he said, well, anyone who doesn't show up will be substantially docked. He then went on to say, quote, for those that did nothing but complain and took time off, even though everyone knew they would be paid in full shortly into the future, I am not happy with you, all caps. Now, as the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, has said to me on my show and to plenty of other people, these air traffic controllers, some of them called into work and said they couldn't come in because they had to take a job as an Uber Eats driver or a Lyft driver just to put gas in their car so they could get to work the next day.
Yeah.
Do you think the president realizes this?
I think he does. I spent some time yesterday talking to my good friend Sean Duffy, who's a former colleague, now the Secretary of Transportation, and I was with the president last night. We have a lot of sympathy for the people who have, at great personal sacrifice, gone to the towers, gone to work, and done their job. The president wants to reward that, and that I appreciate that sentiment. It would take an act of Congress, I'm sure, to make that happen, but it's the right idea.
But he says, I am not happy with you, all caps. I mean,
well, look, on an individual basis, there may be some people that abuse the program, but I mean, it wasn't just air traffic controllers, of course. I mean, we asked Border Patrol agents, TSA agents, and many other categories of federal employees, including all the employees that keep this place in operation.
Capitol Hill police officers, right?
All of them, the ones that are protecting us right now. I mean, they've been working without pay, and so we have great sympathy for them. We'd like to reward that any way we can. It's a patriotic duty that they filled for their country.
When the House returns, so I guess presumably Wednesday, if your prayers come true Wednesday,
yes.
When are you going to swear in Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva of Arizona, who was elected way back in September?
Today.
Yeah, just as I promised, as soon as we get back to legislative session. So, I mean, before we have this vote that we're talking about, she'll be administered the oath.
After the House gavels in, but before the vote.
Right, yeah, sure, as soon as we get started, yeah.
And then she has said that she is going to be the 218th vote to force the discharge petition to release the Epstein files, et cetera, et cetera.
She has the right. I mean, that's immaterial to us. It's now a moot point, by the way. The Oversight Committee has been delving in.
Oh, so he already knew she planned to release the Epstein files, so it wasn't a surprise. He already knew.
Deeply to the Epstein investigation, and they've released 43,000 pages of the Epstein files, more to come. Subpoenas are being complied with. By the way, the latest batch was the Epstein estate files that is not even considered in the discharge petition, was never mentioned, but that was a treasure trove of information, and they released his personal logs, his flight logs, his financial records, and even his daily calendar. So there's plenty of oversight. All of that information is going to be released to the public. The only thing they're redacting, Jake, is the names of the innocent victims.
Sure.
And we insisted upon that, and everybody of common sense understands why that is.
Of course, the survivors. Speaker Rick Johnson, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. I hope the government...
All right, so that was Mike Johnson on the government shutdown, as well as the swearing in of the new elect guys. He already knew that she was planning to vote to release the Epstein files, guys. All right, you can't have the Republicans without having the Democrats. Let's go here with Hakeem Jeffries and others basically giving a press conference on this whole situation.
House Democrats are here on the Capitol steps to reiterate our strong opposition to this spending bill because it fails to address the Republican healthcare crisis and it fails to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. House Democrats will continue to support our men and women in uniform. We will continue to support hardworking federal employees. We will continue to support our law enforcement personnel. House Democrats will continue to support our air traffic controllers. We will continue to support our TSA agents. We will continue to support our civil servants who have been under attack since day one of the Trump administration. But we cannot support the Republican effort to gut the health care of the American people. Today, House Democrats will introduce legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for 3 years to make sure that tens of millions of Americans don't experience dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles. We believe that working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans deserve the same level of certainty that Republicans always provide to the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. The same level of certainty. And so we're calling upon our Republican colleagues to join us and extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And we will be working hard today, tomorrow, and throughout the balance of this year to make sure that those Affordable Care Act tax credits are extended. Now, Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They own the mess that has been created in the United States of America. They own it. In a few hours, we will convene on the House floor. And our message to the American people is no matter what happens on the floor later on today, our promise to you remains the same. House Democrats will continue to fight to make your life more affordable. House Democrats will continue the fight to address the Republican health care crisis, and House Democrats will fight to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. This fight is not over. We're just getting started. We're just getting started. Now, among the many outrageous things that has been said during the Trump Republican shutdown or done during the Trump Republican shutdown, the longest shutdown in American history, is that Donald Trump made the stunning claim that in his mind, he holds two titles, that he has two positions. Donald Trump says that he's both the president and the Speaker of the House. That's what Donald Trump said in the midst of him shutting down the government. And what we've seen from compliant, sycophantic Republicans, corrupt House Republicans, is they continue to go along to get along. They don't function like a separate and co-equal branch of government. From the very beginning of this presidency and all the way through this Trump shutdown, Republicans in the House have continued to act like a wholly owned subsidiary of the corrupt Trump cartel. That may be the House Republican position. For damn sure, it ain't the House Democratic position. Because we know, and what we say to the American people is that we don't work for Donald Trump. We don't work for J.D. Vance. We don't work for your billionaire donors. We work for the American people. And that's what this fight by House Democrats, joined by our colleagues on the other side of the Capitol, has been all about. We work for the American people. as we stand on the Capitol steps, ready to continue this battle on the House floor, a battle that we waged week after week after week, and that will continue regardless of the outcome. We say to the American people that we know you deserve better. You deserve much better than the chaos, the cruelty, and the corruption that you've seen. And so as House Democrats, we're going to continue this fight to lower the high cost of living in a country where America is far too expensive, far too many people struggling to live paycheck to paycheck, can't thrive, and can barely survive. That should not be the case in the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And so as Democrats, we're committed to addressing this affordability crisis. That's what this fight has been all about. And we'll continue to work hard to lower the high cost of living. We'll continue the fight to fix our broken healthcare system. And we'll continue to fight to stand up for Medicaid. We'll continue to fight to stand up for Medicare. We'll continue the fight to stand up for the Affordable Care Act and an extension of the tax credits. We'll continue to fight for your hospitals. We'll continue to fight for your nursing homes. We'll continue to fight for your community-based health clinics. And we'll continue to fight for the principle that in this great country, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, healthcare can't simply be a privilege available only to the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. Healthcare must be a right available to every single American. And that's the fight that House Democrats will continue to wage for the American people. It's now my great honor to yield to the freshman leadership representative, someone who's gotten off to a great start, helping to lead the freshman class, the first term members during this turbulent and tumultuous period here in the United States Congress and for the country. From the great state of California, the Honorable Luz Rivas.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries, Whip Clark, and Chair Aguilar for your leadership. House Democrats are back in Washington, D.C., ready to vote once again to protect health care for working families across the country. Recently, I spoke with Speaker Johnson directly in the Capitol and hand-delivered stories from my and my fellow freshman colleagues' constituents who have been impacted by the Republican shutdown. This includes the story of Stephen Heller, a constituent from Van Nuys, which is in my district. Stephen and his wife are independent contractors who have to pay for their own health insurance. Because Republicans let the ACA tax credits expire, Stephen and his wife are facing a monthly healthcare premium increase of $1,000 per month in 2026. This will bring their monthly total to nearly $2,100 per month and nearly $25,000 for the year, just in health insurance. That is, in Stephen's own words, a terrible financial blow and an enormous financial burden. Constituents across the country like Stephen and his wife cannot afford Republicans' deal. I will vote no and continue to fight with House Democrats to protect the ACA subsidies that Stephen and millions of Americans rely on. House Democrats will continue our fight to protect healthcare, lower the cost of living, and keep the American dream attainable for all. Thank you. And next, I'd like to introduce my amazing colleague from Michigan, Congresswoman McDonald Rivet.
Thank you very much. I come from mid-Michigan, the part of the country where workers actually invented the American dream, to work hard enough to pay your bills, put a little bit away, and take your kids on vacation every once in a while. But the dream is further and further out of reach. In my district, 70% of our jobs pay less than $60,000 a year. So this healthcare crisis that Republicans have created, $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts and gutting the ACA in order to pay for the tax break for the ultra wealthy, is making things so much harder. So let me give you an example. A couple in my district, they actually go to my church. called and told me they're in their 60s and they rely on the ACA tax credits to pay their insurance premiums. But now, because the Republicans have failed to extend these credits, their insurance premiums are going to jump by $11,000 next year. An impossible sum for people on the edge of retirement. Health insurance already consumes 72% of their retirement income. Let me say that again. 72% of their retirement income, and is about to go up another $11,000.
Thank you, Yaya.
That means they're facing devastating choices between doctor's visits and paying the mortgage, between cancer screenings and putting food on the table, between prescription drugs and heating their home, or even, frankly, to get insurance at all. They told me, and this is a direct quote, they are strongly considering going without coverage and taking their chances rather than continuing to pay the premium. Because here's the reality. They actually can't pay that premium. I came to Congress, we all came to Congress to help people like them. Lower cost, better care, more jobs. One easy critical step is simply passing to extend the ACA credits. Yes. It is time we pass it before they pay the cost. Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce my colleague from California, Representative Tran.
Good afternoon. I am Congressman Derek Tran, and I proudly represent Orange and LA counties in California's 45th district. Today, I want to share the story of Peter and Esther. Peter and Esther are retired and living in Orange County, California. They're on a limited income, and their health insurance costs are overwhelming. They pay over $18,000 every year just in health care premiums. And next year, their costs are going up to over $21,000. When you're retired and living on a fixed income, that kind of cost increase can be devastating. Peter has been trying to get his wife Esther on Medicaid so she can get the care she deserves without going bankrupt. But he keeps hitting roadblocks. The red tape, long lines, and staffing shortages preventing Esther from even being considered for Medicaid coverage is harmful to our country. And instead of joining us to fix this crisis, the Republican majority has demanded more cuts, causing more pain and suffering for the American people. I am here today for people like Peter and Esther. They deserve better than this. Every American deserves better than this. While we're fighting for healthcare, Republicans are fighting for tax cuts for the billionaires. I'll keep fighting to make sure people like Peter and Esther can afford the care that they deserve. And I hope our colleagues on the other side of the aisle will join us. Thank you so much. It is with great privilege that I introduce and yield time to Congresswoman Sarah McBride from the great state of Delaware.
Thank you so much, Representative. Thank you so much, Leader Jeffries, Whip Clark, and Chair Aguilar for bringing us together today. We stand here today, 42 days into a government shutdown and 54 days since the House last met, because Republicans have presented the American people with a false choice between reopening government and addressing this healthcare crisis. There is simply no reason why we can't do both. The only thing that has been standing in our way is Republican cruelty. Republicans have played a game of chicken with food assistance, travel safety, and federal paychecks, all because they will stop at nothing to cut your health care. The only thing that congressional Republicans are more loyal to than Donald Trump is to cutting the health care of the American people. Let's be clear. This healthcare crisis is a choice by congressional Republicans and Donald Trump, who have inserted a $1 trillion bomb into the American healthcare system. And it is starting to go off.
Thank you, Ms. D.
Millions right now are facing skyrocketing premiums. The largest cut to Medicaid in American history is on the horizon. Rural hospitals will close. Doctors' offices will shutter. Donald Trump loves to own things and slap his name on them. Well, he now owns the American healthcare system. It is Trump care. Millions losing coverage, that's Trump care. Americans paying more for insurance, that's Trump care. Everyone having to drive longer and take more time off work, that is Trump care. Donald Trump and congressional Republicans have raided your healthcare and used that money as a piggy bank to reward their donors with massive tax breaks. Cruelty is the currency of his corruption. Because Donald Trump only cares about himself, his ballroom, and his billionaire buddies. And he certainly doesn't care about you. House Democrats are here for everyone, whether they voted for us in the last election or not. I'm here on behalf of all of my constituents, including a family of 4 in Middletown who will see their premiums skyrocket by $10,000 next year. That's why we are all voting against this budget. And it's why we will not stop until every single American can get the health care that they need to live and thrive in America. Thank you all very much. And it is now my pleasure to introduce my friend from the great state of Alabama, Representative Shamari Figures.
Thank you. House Democrats just spent the better part of the last 40 plus days fighting to keep health care affordable for millions of Americans, while our House Republican colleagues were on a taxpayer-funded vacation. During this shutdown, the realities hit home for a lot of people. Mothers had to worry about how they would take care of their children, their babies without WIC. Families stood in pantry lines. Families are still standing in food pantry lines. In the month of November, the month of Thanksgiving, because SNAP benefits were expired, and this administration chose to use them as pawns in this game. Capitol Police officers, members of the military, my staff, all of our staff, and millions of other federal workers had to deal with the uncertainty and the stresses of missing paychecks. And for what in the end? What were Republicans willing to give in the end? Nothing more than a handshake deal to take a future vote on extending the healthcare subsidies.
What's up, Slim?
When we all know that that future vote is the equivalent of asking 2 wolves and a chicken to vote on what's for dinner. It is dead on arrival. It is dead on arrival. Now, I can speak to you as someone from a different perspective. A lot of us represent districts where we can talk about what could happen or what may happen. Let me tell you about what my district looks like in the state of Alabama. And it doesn't look too dissimilar from my fellow colleague from Alabama, Congresswoman Terry Sewell's district. I got about 50,000 people in my district who are slated to see their healthcare premiums on average nearly double. And this is in a district where the individual median income is just north of $32,000. I have 13 counties in my district. 10 of them either do not have a hospital because it has recently closed, or their hospital is on literal life support and they have to go to a county commission or a city council every single month to make payroll. And the largest hospital in Montgomery, Alabama, the state's capital, is in the midst of a bankruptcy and also facing risk of closure. And this all in a state that has the 3rd lowest life expectancy in the United States of America. So healthcare for us is not a talking point. Healthcare for us is, protecting healthcare for us is a requisite. It's a requirement. It's something we have to do. And if you ask us if the shutdown was worth it, I say, hell yes, it was worth it. Because fighting to maintain healthcare for American people, there's nothing more pure than that. There's no more important role that we have here as members of Congress than to ensure the healthcare of the American people. And so while the failure of Republicans to do anything to protect healthcare is truly disappointing, I want the world to know that my Democratic colleagues here in the House, they can ride with me in any battle I face in my life. They stood with us under the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries to make sure that we kept this front and center. And I look forward to remaining committed to this fight for all of Alabama and for all of America. And with that, turn it back over to our leader, future Speaker Jeffries.
I want to thank all of our distinguished colleagues who spoke so powerfully and eloquently about the nature of this fight that we continue to wage on behalf of the American people. And these are first-term members of Congress. But they recognize that as Democrats, we stand on the shoulders of many who, decade after decade, century into century, have always fought to make life better for everyday Americans and to protect the health care and enhance the health care of the American people. That's the continuing and enduring legacy of the Democratic Party. FDR fought for it. Truman fought for it. JFK fought for it. LBJ fought for it. Carter fought for it. Clinton fought for it. Barack Obama fought for it. Biden fought for it. And no one fought harder in the House of Representatives than our Speaker Emerita, Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi. That's in the DNA of the Democratic Party. From FDR to Nancy Pelosi to these first-term members. And so our promise to the American people is that we are in this fight until we win this fight for all of you. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save healthcare. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
All right, so that was the Democrats, on this shutdown and what they're looking for, to vote yes to ending the government shutdown. All right, so a little bit more on this Epstein thing. They actually have an interview from his brother. Epstein's brother has spoken publicly, about these leaked documents. These
colleague,
emails.
senior White House reporter Von Hilliard, who's just off the phone with the person we were just talking about, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein. We just put up the meme that Mark Epstein sent to Jeffrey Epstein, a picture. Let me put it up one more time. This is Donald Trump's face, and it says, "Would you trust this man with your daughter?" There it is.
Oh, wow.
You just spoke with the man who sent that meme to his brother. What did he say today?
Right, I'll actually be honest, I completely missed the segment because I was on the phone with him.
That's good.
And just got up from off the street here. And I think we should be very clear here. Mark Epstein is somebody who has said that he is known for decades now that his brother had a deep, close friendship with with Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And he said, the way that he put it to me, when are people going to admit to themselves, this guy, President Trump, is so full of every time he opens his mouth. He says he wanted to deny, it maybe does. He wanted to deny that he had a relationship or a friendship with Donald Trump. As Mark tells me, back in 1999, he was on the plane when they were having intimate conversation about women on a flight from Palm Beach, Florida, back up here to New York. He goes, he talked to his brother, as somebody who he still cares deeply about even after his passing. And he says, at what point is there going to be a reckoning that Donald Trump just makes up stuff? And the number two part is that he's been very clear, this is outside the scope of what we're talking about today, but he wants a full investigation into the death of his brother, saying he doesn't believe anybody at this point anymore. He said he did sit down, he just told me, with the House Oversight Committee here this summer. I said, did they call and ask you to come in and speak? He goes, no, I requested to. And he said he went into detail with staff trying to get them, to compel them to go even further beyond just the relationship between Donald Trump and other men that were a part of this cabal, and to really get at the fact of why did people want Jeffrey Epstein gone. This also goes to a conversation I had with Mark over the summer when he told me that Steve Bannon had 15 hours of footage of him interviewing Jeffrey Epstein. We have not seen that footage. And I think it's also worth noting that Michael Wolff has said that he has up to 100 hours of audio recordings with Jeffrey Epstein. We have not heard those audio recordings from either of the men, and that is what hits at the heart that Mark Epstein is so frustrated by, that the public, including him as the brother, do not have a full understanding of what the Department of Justice has, or frankly, what either of these two other men have.
I do not cover dead child sex traffickers often, so excuse this question if it's ignorant, but does Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, believe the victims?
I don't have a direct answer to that. He is somebody that I should be clear, he just told me, I don't care about the Epstein files. I don't care about the nitty-gritty details. He goes, he wants them all released.
Okay.
He said, but
on the question of transparency, he's an ally of the victim. Does he believe his brother was a monster?
Absolutely. He believes, he doesn't, how about this, Nicole? He doesn't want to get into those details. He truly says that he just cares about how his brother was killed. Again, on a very human level, to the extent that anybody can understand what it would be like to have somebody that trafficked children and young teenagers. I couldn't understand that, and I'm not going to be the one to put that on Mark Epstein, but he had a close relationship with his brother there, and he is on the side of having full transparency. And again, it hits at the heart where I think he so emphasizes that it was not just his brother. It was other people too. And I think that's where we come back to, whether it's Mark Epstein, whether it's the victims, whether it's members of Congress on Capitol Hill, from Marjorie Taylor Greene to Democrats. It is not just about Donald Trump. It is about them and all the other men that were a part of this being held to account. And that's why he wants the documents. And that's why he was so invested in his frustration that Donald Trump's denials are just at this point blasphemy, because it runs afoul of the lived experience that led his brother into jail for a life sentence, and then, as he says, his death.
Nicole, can I add to that for a second? Because Mark Epstein is not alone in his frustration. When you look at the files, and that's where I've spent most of my time today, that frustration is also palpable on behalf of other people who knew Jeffrey Epstein a whole lot less well than his brother. Landon Thomas, for example, the New York Times reporter, was the one who wrote that infamous 2002 profile of Jeffrey Epstein in New York Magazine, where Trump gave the quote that Jeffrey enjoys beautiful women, perhaps as much as I do, many of them on the younger side. That's a quote that we have talked about extensively ever since. And I'm reading right now in the files today an email exchange between Landon Thomas and Jeffrey Epstein, where he says, everybody and their mother is calling me because of that quote. And he says, you know, I'm serious, man. For the good of the nation, why not try to get some of this out there? I would not do it myself, but I would pass it on to a political reporter. And then Landon Thomas is showing Jeffrey Epstein another story from another publication in which Alan Garten, who was the general counsel of the Trump Organization, says Mr. Trump's only connection with Mr. Epstein was that Mr. Epstein was one of thousands of people who has visited Mar-a-Lago. That's it. Mr. Trump has never been accused of having any involvement or even having any knowledge of any of Mr. Epstein's conduct by anyone. What does Landon Thomas say to that? Look at these lies. And then Jeffrey Epstein responds with a picture. And he says, this is my 20-year-old girlfriend in 1993 that after 2 years, I gave to Donald. What kind of people talk about giving a person with whom they're in a romantic relationship to someone else? It's a very sick, perversely transactional way about talking about anyone, much less a young woman. I should note that the woman who's named here is also alleged to be the woman in the picture with the check that came out at the time of the birthday book. You'll recall that there's a picture of someone giving a check to someone else for $20,000. I believe the check is being written to Jeffrey Epstein from Donald Trump. And that woman, whose name I'm not going to disclose here, is apparently in that picture. Again, the transactional nature of the way they are bartering and exchanging women between them is grotesque. And so Mark Epstein is hardly alone in being upset that the truth has not come out.
Oh, wow, guys. So there was some more on the Epstein files. What do y'all think, guys? Will we ever get them? Right? All right, hold on, because they are voting. The Senate is basically voting if they're going to open or reopen the government, guys. Do y'all think they will open it?
The
The House will be in order. All members are instructed to take their conversations outside. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
I want to go here
Jeffrey
first.
Epstein released. We do see lawmakers walking around. Let's take you back out to the steps of Capitol Hill. I'm not exactly sure
where they talk a little bit about the Epstein files and this vote, guys. They're voting as we're speaking.
To this here on Live Now from Fox, as of course we're diving into the latest.
Or two emails. We released.
This is some on the Epstein file.
Did it not? How do you think it made the president look bad?
Just insinuating the president had deeper ties than previously thought to Jeffrey Epstein.
I think everything that was released has already been out there. What the Democrats did, they released something and they tried to imply that it was a victim when the email wasn't redacted. They tried to redact it and say, this is a victim that he was with a lot of times, and the victim, the actual email we posted on the website wasn't redacted. It was the Virginia, and she's already said under oath that Trump was never involved. She never saw Trump involved in anything. And then she wrote a book that came out last week, and I don't think it has Trump's name in it. So, but we're still doing the investigation. We've done everything we said we would do on the Oversight Committee. I subpoenaed the estate. So the Democrats say, oh, we found an email, and they post one email about Trump and no emails about Clinton or anybody else. You know, there's a lot of prominent people that were in that associated with Epstein. Now, whether they did anything wrong or not, that's what we're investigating. We're going to continue to try to get more information. As quick as we get information, we're putting it online. So we're being very transparent. We're not just taking one email or two emails. We're putting everything on the website, and you guys can look through it and make the decision there.
But are you concerned about an email in which Jeffrey Epstein says that President Trump was spending time with someone who was allegedly being trafficked at the time?
But no, the woman that they were referring to was the Virginia Guffey. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her name, and that she's already testified under oath that Trump wasn't involved, that she never saw Trump do anything, and she just wrote a book.
But generally at that time she was being victimized by Jeffrey Epstein.
But there's no evidence that Trump knew that. Trump's been very vocal that when he found out that Epstein was a shady guy, he kicked him out of the Mar-a-Lago.
Will you advise members?
Can we get 20 more likes, guys? Double tap that screen if you have not. If you're on a mobile device, double tap your screen or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. It helps out the channel. Also, subscribe to the channel if you are new.
To vote one way or the other on the bill behind this discharge petition once it comes up for a vote?
They can vote however they want. Look, at the end of the day, we're doing everything and more that the discharge petition says. The discharge petition says for the administration to release all the documents. I already subpoenaed Pam Bondi for the documents, and they are thus far producing documents. And remember, there are a lot of class action lawsuits. There's still supposedly an investigation or two out there. But at the end of the day, we're doing everything we can on the Oversight Committee to get information. So,
but in order to avoid this drip of documents, wouldn't it just make sense to release it all at once?
We're trying to get all the documents. I want the documents released. I've been very public about that. And again, I subpoenaed Pam Bondi for the documents, and I subpoenaed the estate.
But you only released documents today after the Democrats did.
Well, we have to go through to make sure. They put it in a computer and they put keywords in Trump. So anything that parts up to Trump, it's like they don't care about the victims. The investigation, the purpose of investigation is to find justice for the victims, right? That's what we all want, right? It's about the victims. And what we want to know is how the government failed the victims. Why didn't Epstein go to prison sooner? That's why I subpoenaed, and we deposed Alex Acosta. The Democrats had equal time to grill Acosta for, the sweetheart plea deal, which is what I think it was. So we're doing everything we can to get the information, and I want all the documents. So we're going to keep trying to get all the documents. But again, what I think gets left out in translation is there are a lot of class action lawsuits there by the victims, and there are still federal investigations ongoing. So we're doing everything we can. We're going to continue to do everything we can to get the documents. And like we always do, we don't just, the Democrats could have posted everything online if they posted the one email about from Epstein to Maxwell that referenced Trump. We put everything on there. So you can go through and look, there's other stuff that I think you all will be interested in about lots of people. So hopefully you're going through the website. It's so many documents. I know it's not the easiest way to download the information. We've already heard from people. We're doing the best we can with the technology that we have. And when you drop 30,000 documents, that's a lot on a computer.
Will you vote in favor of this bill?
Just for clarification, given the fact that you want the transparency, would you also just vote in favor of the underlying bill, given that that's what it's about?
Well,
it's quite clear. Chuck Schumer is done. He's worthless. He's worthless in his government.
All right, you can just see them wander around trying to find different lawmakers for the time being. That was James Comer, obviously so integral in the House Oversight Committee for the GOP, talking about some of those released, the redacted name of the victim, as they potentially had Trump also in these documents, in these trio of emails. So we're following it, and we're also looking at this live here on Live Now from Fox as the rule, a key procedural.
Hold up. All right, let's go.
What does President Trump say? And I quote, affordability is a con job, end quote. How out of touch can you be? Mr. President, start to listen to the American people, not your millionaire, billionaire friends. President Trump and my Republican colleagues refuse to address this issue. They continue to avoid it. They were so intent on avoiding it that they shut down the government instead of dealing with it. Speaker Johnson has indicated that he will not deal with it. This is live. He has shown no interest in holding a vote on extending the health care subsidies, which would prevent monthly costs from soaring. Republicans have tried to say they will deal with this problem their own way, but they have no plan. They are trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, as they have been trying to do unsuccessfully for 15 years. However, they are poised to succeed, which is why it is so important for this continuing resolution to fail. President Trump and Republicans, their plan is to drive up prices for everybody, compounding the cost of living crisis. More than 2 million Americans are expected to lose their health insurance next year because it has simply become too expensive. There are more than 50 pages of health care provisions in this bill. Not one of them stops costs from skyrocketing at the beginning of next year. Not one of them offers relief to American families being squeezed tighter and tighter by the Republican crisis. There is one group of people, however, who will receive some relief thanks to this bill. United States senators who may have participated in an insurrection, snuck into this bill at the 11th hour by Senate Republicans, is a provision to pay out at least $1 million each to 8 United States senators implicated in the January 6th insurrection. Understand, this is a corrupt precedent. This is where members can profit from their own votes. It's the fleecing of the American people, which they get and understand. At the same time, this bill excludes a provision that will order a plaque to be hung that honors the police officers who put their lives on the line to defend our democracy from that same insurrection. What a contrast. It is yet another instance of this administration's shameless corruption that is financially ruining American families. While there is $230 million for the president to pay himself from the Department of Justice, $8 million for some of his closest Senate allies, $200 million for a pair of private jets for the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, $40 billion to Argentina. The American people are left with nothing but higher costs. This bill also fails to fully cover the Toxic Exposure Fund, which was created to support veterans exposed to burn pits and Agent Orange. We made a promise to stand by the men and women who served our country in uniform. This bill does not live up to that promise. You know, Republicans need to stop taking photographs with veterans and then vote against their health care. Those who lead in the appropriations process here believe in the constitutional power of the purse. And over the past month, President Trump has been firing federal workers en masse. And when his administration has failed there, they have made life so miserable for federal workers that they had no choice but to leave. Federal workers should be, and I quote, traumatically affected. Those are the words of the Office of Management and Budget Director, Russ Vought, an unelected bureaucrat. The federal workforce has dwindled by 200,000 since January, jeopardizing the public services that so many people rely on. Spare us your false concern. And since January, this administration has been stealing from our communities, withholding as much as $410 billion in funding approved by Democrats and Republicans, House, Senate, signed into law, and they are illegally blocking authorized funds from being distributed. Even now, as we debate this bill, the Trump administration is arguing to the Supreme Court that they should be allowed to withhold food stamp funding that Congress lawfully approved. They were ordered by 3 separate courts to distribute food assistance and are still fighting to withhold it. It is not connected to opening this government. They have the money. They have it now for food stamps. They just refuse to use it. Imagine using food as a political weapon, unspeakable and immoral. It seems like their only plan is to strip children of food assistance while kicking their parents off their health insurance. They have demonstrated that that is who they are. These are their true colors. You cannot expect Democrats to go along with any bipartisan funding deal if that agreement can be undone with a party line vote. Congress must assert its authority over the power of the purse. I encourage my colleagues to vote no, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to our distinguished majority leader, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise.
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank my friend, the Chairman of the Appropriations, Mr. Cole from Oklahoma, for not only yielding, but for bringing this important bill to the floor. Our appropriators worked tirelessly to negotiate a multi-bill package that is part of this bill to reopen the government. And we never should have been here, Mr. Speaker. We tried as Republicans over a month ago to prevent a government shutdown. We had a vote here on the House floor. 99% of Republicans voted to keep the government open, and 99% of Democrats voted to shut it down. And then that bill went over to the Senate, and we watched for 42 days, where time and time again, Democrats, just to appease their most radical base, continued to vote in unison to shut the government down. And during that shutdown, we saw millions of families experience pain, Mr. Speaker, pain and suffering that Democrats themselves acknowledged that they imposed on the American people. But they said over and over again, we have quote after quote from Democrats during the shutdown, that they needed to impose the suffering to get leverage, Mr. Speaker, to use the American people as pawns to get leverage. For what? For what? They ultimately filed an alternative bill, $1.5 trillion mad spending spree that included things like $200 billion of taxpayer funding for illegals to get taxpayer benefits, while they gutted the $50 billion rural health care fund that we put in place in the working families tax cut. So, Mr. Speaker, anybody who comes up here and says they care about health care, they were also advocating to gut the $50 billion rural health care fund to provide $200 billion in taxpayer-funded health care benefits for illegals. It's insanity. And if you really want to look at where this all began, as some on the other side, Democrats, want to talk about a healthcare crisis, the healthcare law of the land is what many refer to as Obamacare. But let's remember the original name that Democrats gave that bill when they created it. They called it the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act. Only Democrats voted for it. Republicans knew it was going to be anything but affordable. It was going to interfere with the doctor-patient relationship. And unfortunately, it's done that. But if you want to talk about affordable, and maybe the only other bill that's more laughable in its name is the Inflation Reduction Act. Yeah, that's another product brought to you by Democrat-only votes. The Inflation Reduction Act, which ushered in the inflation under Joe Biden that we're still trying to shake today. But the Affordable Care Act, Mr. Speaker, since it started, Americans have seen over 80% increases in their health care costs because of a Democrat-created bill that they want to now blame on Republicans. I understand why they would want to try to now pawn that off on somebody else. But then if you look over time during COVID, they created a temporary relief fund, not to individuals, Mr. Speaker, but to insurance companies. Democrats created a temporary, they called it temporary in the law, temporary COVID relief tax credit to insurance companies to bail out big insurance companies who are seeing record profits. And that's now what they want Republicans to renew. A insurance company bailout that Democrats created to be temporary. They set it up to expire. And now they're saying that the world's going to end if that insurance company bailout doesn't get renewed. While at the same time, when we as Republicans worked to actually lower premiums for families, they fought it every step of the way. That's right. We had a bill that we passed through this House just a few months ago in the Working Families Tax Credit. Part of that bill was called the cost share reduction, was scored by the CBO to lower premiums for families by over 12%. And what happened? It gets over, and by the way, every Democrat voted against that too, because they've never cared about lowering premiums. Then that bill gets over to the Senate. Senate Democrats worked overtime to get that provision removed. And if you go look at Senate Democrat Budget Committee website, they still brag that they removed that provision that would have lowered premiums for families. So absolutely, Republicans have worked and will continue, by the way, to work to lower premiums for families. But make no mistake, the high premiums that everybody faces today are a result of the inaptly named Affordable Care Act and the many failures associated with it. But this bill today is about ending the misery Democrats created on families. That is just about funding the government, not about solving other problems that we should be working to solve, but about getting the government back open while not holding the American people hostage. And that, Mr. Speaker, is what has disgusted the American people most during this shutdown. That should have never happened, but it's that it has caused real suffering for American families. Our men and women in uniform that had to wonder whether or not they're going to get paid. Air traffic controllers who already had a highly stressful job and then had to show up for work without getting paid. Multiple paychecks missed. Now you're seeing, because a lot of those air traffic controllers have to go work jobs as Uber drivers. They aren't even being able to show up for work because they still have bills due, their rent's due. They're trying to put food on their table, and Democrats want to vote no tonight to keep denying them food. The 42 million SNAP recipients, those people that are low income that need those food benefits, if you vote no today, you are voting to deny those 42 million low-income families basic food needs. Don't talk about how much you care about low-income people and vote no tonight to deny them food, basic services, basic things that American families need who shouldn't be part of the leverage Democrats want to show their radical base that they're fighting Donald Trump because they're upset with the results of the election from November. It is time to end this madness, Mr. Speaker. Let's get this government back open. Let's go negotiate our differences, which are many, but let's do it while not continuing to hold the American people hostage. I urge my Democrat colleagues who have voted relentlessly to shut this government down and to impose this suffering on the American people to stop. Stop imposing the suffering. Let's open the government. Let's get back to the work of the American people. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Louisiana yields back. Does the gentleman from Oklahoma reserve?
I do, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlelady from Connecticut is recognized.
I remind the majority leader that a 60-year-old couple earning $82,800 per year, annual premiums will rise by over $17,000, a 255% increase. It now gives me great pleasure to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Georgia, the distinguished ranking member of the Agricultural and Rural Development Subcommittee, Mr. Bishop.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Ranking Member DeLauro. As ranking member of the Agriculture, Rural Development, and FDA Subcommittee, I rise to oppose this bill. Though it does represent, for the most part, solid bipartisan work to provide investments in agriculture in rural America, I am disappointed that the rest of it falls far short of the needs of most Americans. Healthcare providers and patients are frustrated and frightened by the imminent skyrocketing of healthcare costs caused by the loss of the ACA tax credits and cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and life-saving biomedical research. My constituent, Angela Holmes, is unable to walk without debilitating pain. She's worried that without tax credits, she won't be able to afford health insurance to complete the multiple back surgeries she needs. For many Georgians, health care is a matter of life and death. Our Republican colleagues could have corrected this in the Rules Committee, but they rejected an amendment last night that would have lowered health premium costs. To me, that's unconscionable. So are the administration's actions during the shutdown. As a Christian, I'm outraged that USDA used the shutdown to illegally withhold SNAP from 42 million Americans. USDA had the chance to do the right thing and use designated contingency funds, but rejected it. And when ordered to do so by the courts, they fought all the way to the Supreme Court to keep hungry families from receiving food. America produces the highest quality, safest, most affordable, and abundant food, fiber, and medicine anywhere in the world. To that end, this bill provides many welcome investments. It fully funds SNAP and WIC, replenishes the SNAP and WIC contingency funds, and fully funds cash value vouchers for fruits and vegetables for women and children. It also helps rural America by providing $1 billion in single-family direct home loans, $120 million over the House level, and funding water and wastewater programs at $446 million, both issues that Democrats tried to address in full committee. The bill provides $1.8 billion for the Agricultural Research Service, $1.6 billion for NIFA, protecting farmers, small businesses, and families against President Trump's budget request to eliminate land-grant university research and extension activities across the country. I'm pleased to see that the bill language requires USDA to notify Congress before canceling grants over $1 million. The agricultural portion of this bill does make positive steps in the right direction. The bill discards many of the harmful policy riders, which in the House bill, yet it does not go far enough to negate House language falsely questioning the safety of mifepristone and encouraging FDA to explore liability protections for certain infant formula manufacturers, over which the agency has absolutely no jurisdiction. And while the overall funding package may reopen the government for a month or two, this bill does not address the breach of trust this administration has demonstrated since January. They fail to follow the law, and we cannot trust that they will even execute this bill if we vote on it today.
The gentleman's time has expired.
They have 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
The gentleman is recognized for an additional 15 seconds.
They fail to follow the law, and we can't trust that they'll execute the law. They cut SNAP by 20% in the big ugly bill this summer, dismantled the funded federal programs, fired federal workers, and illegally ignored court orders. This bill fails to address the healthcare crisis, and the bipartisan outrage has erupted over language in the bill to pay millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars to a handful of senators whose phone records were subpoenaed in relation to the January 6th investigation. It's a bad bill.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman yields back. Does the gentlelady from Connecticut reserve? The gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I recognize yield 2 minutes to my very good friend, distinguished gentleman from Texas and distinguished chairman of the Military Construction and Veterans Subcommittee, the Appropriations Committee, Mr. Carter.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my longtime friend, colleague, and the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, Mr. Cole, for yielding me the time. I rise in support of H.R. 5371 and look forward to reopening the government. The shutdown has gone on long enough, and it's time to end it. Yesterday was Veterans Day, and it's a timely reminder of the commitment our armed forces personnel have made and the responsibility that we have to take care of those who serve our nation. Military Construction and Veteran Affairs component of the legislation meets that goal. The legislation includes $133.3 billion for the Department of Veterans Affairs, including $113.8 billion for discretionary funding for the VA medical care. It includes critical funding for Medicare, medical health services, telehealth services, veterans homelessness programs, medical research programs, and rural health initiatives. It invests in information technology, including robust investments in VA electronic health record modernization. Fully funds all mandatory veterans benefits, including veterans disability compensation programs, education benefits, and vocational rehabilitation and employment training. Nearly $20 billion for the Department of Defense military construction programs. This amount funds nearly 300 projects at military bases around
Yield the gentleman an additional 15 seconds, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman has an additional 15 seconds.
It includes $3 billion to improve and maintain housing for service members, provides requested resources for the American Battle Monuments, Armed Forces Retirement Home, and Operations of Arlington Cemetery. I want to thank Mr. Cole for his endless work to get us to this point. And I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting the bill. And I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Does the gentleman from Oklahoma reserve? The gentleman reserves. The gentlelady from Connecticut is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentlewoman from Florida, the distinguished ranking member of the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Subcommittee, Ms. Wasserman Schultz.
The gentlelady from Florida is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentlewoman for yielding. I rise to oppose this slush fund for senators bill that will force healthcare costs to explode for millions of Americans. In fact, this legislation guarantees only 2 things. Republican senators suspected of helping Trump try to steal an election will get a whole lot richer, and life will get more expensive for everyone else. That's because this bill adds rocket fuel to Republicans' larger assault on Americans' access to quality, affordable health care. Remember, Mr. Speaker, Republicans already slashed $1 trillion from Medicaid, $500 billion from Medicare, and let Trump steal billions in medical research. But with this bill, Republicans dump massive healthcare price hikes on struggling Americans. Millions will be priced out of any coverage at all, which will drive coverage costs up and health services down for all of us. It's a health budget nightmare for America's families and a slush fund lottery win for 8 Republican senators. Because the one thing that we can all agree on, unless you're Jeffrey Epstein's best friend in the White House, is that the cost of living is out of control. Rent, home insurance, and electric bills are all soaring. The cost of beef, coffee, and vegetables just keep climbing. People are really struggling to get by. Yet Donald Trump continues to block SNAP benefits to 42 million struggling seniors, patients, and veterans. How anyone could swipe food from the plates of nearly 20 million children like that is simply disgusting, but that same moral bankruptcy is embedded in this bill. This bill unleashes huge health insurance hikes on 203,000 people in my district alone, and 82,000 people will lose coverage altogether due to the impact of the big ugly law and soaring ACA prices. Worse, this bill also reneges on our commitment to veterans. As the ranking member of the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Subcommittee, I take our promises to veterans personally and seriously. Just this summer, I secured bipartisan support for my amendment to restore $51.7 billion in advance funding for the Toxic Exposures Fund. This is funding, mind you, that President Trump sought in his budget. Yet as Republicans slipped a slush fund for senators into this bill, they gutted a critical funding protection for veterans. Just so we're all clear, average Americans will see their kitchen table budget blow up from the health coverage price hikes, and veterans will see their future healthcare funding for toxic exposures put in jeopardy. Also, billionaires can keep getting huge tax breaks. It's hard to pick between the worst moral outrages behind this bill. Was it covering up for Epstein's best friend for nearly 2 months, just so Republicans could vacation and avoid negotiating a better health care plan for our struggling families? Or is it the slush fund that personally enriches Republican senators and will haunt everyone who votes for this bill? Well, House Democrats will oppose this partisan spending bill that guts America's health care, and we'll keep fighting to extend health care tax credits. Donald Trump and Republicans broke their promise to lower costs, and this bill certainly cements that betrayal. But Democrats will stand by our promise to lower costs, and we'll make sure every American knows Republicans are responsible for this devastating health care crisis.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to my very good friend, distinguished chairman of the Agriculture Subcommittee of the Committee on Appropriation, Dr. Harris of Maryland.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of Senate Amendment to H.R. 5371, which will finally put an end to the Democrat-led government shutdown. Millions of Americans have suffered because they refuse to reopen the government, harming those who depend on SNAP benefits, federal workers, Border Patrol agents, and our troops who are uncertain about their next paycheck. This legislation extends government funding to the end of January 2026, thereby blocking attempts to force a budget-busting omnibus at the last minute before Christmas. It also includes the FY 2026 Agriculture, Rural Development, and Food and Drug Administration Appropriations Act. Republicans have effectively locked in disciplined, flat spending levels while supporting the Trump administration's policy priorities. The agriculture bill provides $26.65 billion in discretionary spending, which is level with the current amounts, while also including community project funding. This bill provides critical funding support to America's farmers, ranchers, and rural communities. It ensures both USDA and FDA can safeguard our nation's food and drug supply, and fully funds nutrition programs, including SNAP and WIC. Additionally, the bill closes the hemp loophole that has resulted in the spread of unregulated, intoxicating hemp-derived products that are being sold online and in gas stations and corner stores across the country. Many of these products are accessible and attractive to children, resulting in thousands of calls to U.S. poison control centers, with more than 30% involving children aged 5 years and younger. This provision is supported by 39 states' attorney general and over 81 national and state public health, medical, law enforcement, and other organizations. It's beyond disappointing that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle will soon be voting to continue the chaos and uncertainty of a government shutdown. But this is what responsible Republican government looks like. We stared down the radical Democrats' outrageous budget-busting demands and held the line for hardworking American taxpayers. I want to thank Appropriations Chairman Cole for his leadership, strongly encourage my colleagues to support this legislation. Mr. Chair, I yield back time.
The gentleman from Maryland yields back. Does the gentleman from Oklahoma reserve? The gentleman reserves. The gentlelady from Connecticut is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from New York, the distinguished ranking member of the Legislative Branch Subcommittee, Mr. Espaillat.
The gentleman from New York is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong opposition to the Senate's amendment to H.R. 5371 because once again, the Senate has put other interests ahead of those of the American people. Today's backroom deal does nothing to stop 20 million Americans that will see their health care premiums double or triple. And it does absolutely nothing to stop provisions in the reconciliation package that will strip 50 million people of the Medicaid coverage. These cuts will have a resounding impact for individuals and the healthcare industry and economy as a whole. Safety net hospitals like Montefiore in my district and federally funded clinics like Borinque in East Harlem face having to eliminate services or completely close. Families, seniors, and children who go to these clinics and hospitals cannot afford to lose health care coverage. On top of that, Mr. Speaker, the legislative branch bill, which was done unilaterally, not with the consultation of both sides, it was done on its own, in the Senate, in the dark, in cahoots with a bunch of people, includes a provision that will line the pockets of 8 senators that we know of by allowing them to sue the government for millions of dollars if the Department of Justice subpoenas their phone records or seeks a lawful non-disclosure order. While families in my district are stretching every single dollar just to pay for food and rent, senators want a personal payout if law enforcement dares to hold them accountable. At every turn of this shutdown and fight for healthcare access, Republicans and the Trump administration have tried to inflict suffering as much as possible. For weeks, the administration held food stamps hostage. And even when some states comply with a court ruling to release full benefits, the president demanded that they be clawed back. Even when governors stepped up and said, we don't want people to go hungry, they ran to court, Mr. Speaker, to take $6.20 away from poor people. Who does that? Explain that to me. Who takes $6.20 away from a single mom or a hungry senior? That's the state of America today. Unbelievable. And here we are to vote on this. I will be casting my vote as a no. In fact, it will be a hell no tonight.
The gentleman from New York yields back. The gentlelady from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to my very good friend, the distinguished gentlelady from Michigan and chairman of the House Republican Conference, Ms. McClain.
The gentlelady from Michigan is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. And God, I love the compassion and the passion on the other side of the aisle. You know, we're worried about taking money out of families. Well, you know what? Y'all can do the right thing and vote yes. If not, you're the ones that are taking money from needy families, not us, because yes means yes, we want to feed the families. We want to have SNAP programs. No means we don't fund those programs. See how simple that is? But keep on with the rhetoric. I mean, it's cute, but the American people don't buy it. So, I mean, listen, for the past 40 days, Democrats have inflicted needless pain on hardworking Americans. They stranded millions of travelers. They denied food assistance for hungry families. And how did they do that? When you vote no to continue funding, that means you deny food stamps for hungry families. No means no, you don't want to pay them. Yes, like the Republicans vote, that means yes, we do want to pay them. So, you know, they left our troops wondering when they'd get their next paycheck. And for what, Mr. Speaker? To use the American people as leverage. Don't take my word for it, take theirs. Leverage for more wasteful Washington spending. Spending that no one other than the radical left ever wanted. And to remind the American people, they wanted $1.5 trillion of their hard-earned tax dollars. But what did they get in return? They got nothing. They got nothing because Republicans refused to waste the American people's money. Not a dime for their radical climate change, not a dollar for tax-funded benefits for illegals, and not one single concession to their radical far-left base. Millions of Americans whose lives were upended by the Democratic shutdown will remember this.
Yield the gentlelady an additional 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Gentlelady is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
Thank you. The American people will remember who held them hostage for petty political reasons and who fought to put America first. So now that this shameful charade is over, House Republicans will continue our work on behalf of the American people. We will restore regular order to the appropriations process. We will continue to fulfill the mandate of the American people, and we will keep delivering results for American people, because that's what we're here to do for, not to play politics. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield. Thank you.
The gentlelady from Michigan yields back. The gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. Before we move on, members are advised to direct their comments to the chair and not to engage in personalities. The gentlelady from Connecticut is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the greatest honor, really, to yield time, 2 minutes time, to the gentlewoman from California, the distinguished Speaker Emerita, Ms. Pelosi, and I might add, probably the epitome of the best speaker that this nation has ever had, in addition to which millions of Americans have health care coverage through the Affordable Care Act because of Speaker Pelosi, and she's also Italian-American. Thank you. I yield. And a grandmother.
The gentlelady from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentlewoman for yielding, Madam Chair, once and future Chair of the Appropriations Committee, and thank her for her leadership and her kind words. I take heed, Mr. Speaker, of your comment to address my remarks to you and not to your colleagues. So I can say to you, and perhaps you can tell them, either they don't know what they're talking about or they don't care about meeting the needs of the American people. Did any one of them vote? Did any one of them vote to eliminate a need for a pre-existing condition in health care? Not one of them. Did any one of them vote to say if your children get to be 26, until they're 26 years old, they have access to your policy? Not one of them. Did any of them vote to bring a woman as being a pre-existing medical condition? Not one of them. The list goes on and on. Do any one of them vote for the Affordable Care Act, which, Mr. Speaker, you can tell them, was paid for? And then later, when we decided that we could extend the tax credits further so more people could have more access to care, did anyone vote for that? No. So all they have done is try to eliminate access to health care in our country. The public is catching on to them. You might tell them if a woman is born with a child that has a heart condition, she's out of luck with what they are proposing. If a father gets a stroke, forget about it. If you have a sibling with a disability, they don't care. And if your wife has breast cancer, you got big bills to pay because they want to take away health care, whether it's Medicaid to tens of millions of people, $500 billion from Medicare for seniors and people with disabilities, millions of dollars added to the cost for families for access to the Affordable Care Act. The list goes on and on. Either they don't know or they don't care. I'll say one more thing as a grandmother and mother. How about the President of the United States on Halloween night having a Halloween party? A Halloween party and saying to the Supreme Court, please don't make me feed the children or the poor people in our country. Going to the Supreme Court for that means cruelty is not even comes close to the word that is needed for that kind of behavior. The worst president for children America has ever seen. I yield back.
The gentlelady from California yields back. The gentlelady from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to my very good friend, distinguished gentleman from West Virginia and member of the Legislative Branch Subcommittee and Committee of Appropriations, Mr. Moore.
The gentleman from West Virginia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to support the Senate amendment to H.R. 5371, which includes full funding for the legislative branch. I'm honored to serve as the vice chairman of the legislative branch subcommittee, and I'm grateful to Chairman Valadao for his leadership on that committee. It has been a long road to bring this bill to the floor, a road that was made significantly longer by totally unnecessary Schumer shutdown that we've been living in. The bill before us not only reopens the entire government, but ensures that the House and its supporting agencies remain working for the American people. The bill invests in safety and security. It increases funding for the Capitol Police, provides support for security programs through the House Sergeant at Arms, and is tough on foreign adversaries, including language I wrote, preventing the purchase of technology tied to the Chinese Communist Party. I want to thank Chairman Cole for his leadership and Ranking Member Espaillat and our subcommittee members and their staff and our staff and their work. And I urge my colleagues to vote yes. I yield back.
The gentleman from West Virginia yields back. The gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentlelady from Connecticut is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Ohio, the distinguished ranking member of the Energy and Water Subcommittee, Ms. Kaptur.
The gentlelady from Ohio is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the ranking member for yielding, Congresswoman DeLauro. Congress today should vote for affordable health insurance for Americans and reduce its rising costs. Instead, in the dead of night, 8 Senate Republicans slipped into this bill a payola for themselves, literally raking millions of dollars to themselves. This payola is called corruption. Corruption. Millions of taxpayer dollars now are slated for Senators Graham, Hagerty, Hawley, Sullivan, Tuberville, Johnson, Loomis, and Blackburn. Each is teed up to personally rake in a minimum of $500,000 up to $1.5 million. Meanwhile, the American people need more affordable health insurance, but these senators with their House allies are lining their own pockets. I say no more tax breaks to billionaires and no payoffs to U.S. senators. This is what happens when power serves itself instead of the people. This isn't leadership, it's corruption disguised as legislation. Will the gentleman yield me 10 seconds?
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Let's cleanse America of disgusting corruption. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
The gentleman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to my very good friend, distinguished member from Washington and distinguished member of the Appropriations Committee, Mr. Newhouse.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Cole, for yielding the time. Mr. Speaker, over 40 days after the Senate Democrats shut down the federal government, we are finally reopening. The result of the shutdown has been thousands of employee furloughs, major disruptions to our air travel, service members going without pay, delayed food assistance for low-income individuals and families, and much, much more. Mr. Speaker, as a member of the House Appropriations Committee, the responsibility of funding the federal government is one that I take very seriously, especially in light of our nation's debt surpassing $38 trillion. The performative tactics that we have watched over the last 7 weeks have truly been a disservice to Americans. And my friends across the aisle should never have put leverage or politics over those people that they represent. But the most important thing right now is that we get back to work, making sure the federal government can provide the essential services that people depend on, and that Congress can continue working to pass full-year funding legislation providing responsible federal spending and fund those essential services. Mr. Speaker, we are making significant progress with the inclusion of these 3 appropriation bills, but our work is far from over. I encourage all my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this deal, vote to end this unnecessary shutdown, and help us get back to the business of hardworking Americans across this country. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Minnesota, the distinguished ranking member of the Defense Subcommittee, Ms. McCollum.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker.
What y'all thinking so far? Will they open the government, guys?
Government. For 42 days, Republicans shut it down. Why? Because they refused to extend tax credits to help millions of Americans afford their health care. And if that wasn't bad enough, President Trump even withheld food assistance during the shutdown. Hunger should never be used as a weapon. The CR continues the Republican health care crisis.
No, this is not fake. This is live right now, guys. They're getting ready to vote whether they're going to open the government or keep it closed.
Health care costs for Americans. So now my constituents are going to have to choose between heating their homes, feeding their families, or taking their children to the doctor. It's a terrible deal for the American people. Americans deserve an open and transparent government that works for them. They deserve access to affordable health care, nutritious food for their families. And that's what Democrats are fighting for. I wish the president and the Republicans would join us in this fight and share our priorities. I yield back.
The gentlewoman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to my very good friend, gentleman from
And this
Missouri,
is the Republicans and Democrats, not just the Democrats.
Recognized.
Well, thank you, Chairman Cole, for your leadership. Mr. Speaker, in the words of Yogi Berra, this seems like deja vu all over again. 59 days ago, I stood at this very lectern debating the ranking member and a friend of mine over the continuing resolution to keep our government open. On September 19th, we did our work in this body, but Senate Democrats chose to hold America hostage with the Schumer shutdown. Democrats in Congress, including the minority whip, shamefully admitted they were using the misery they inflicted on the American people as leverage to achieve their leftist wish list of demands, slowly twisting the heads of the American people in a vice. Tonight, I'm relieved to say the misery of the Schumer shutdown is on our doorstep. Mr. Speaker, this package proves that when Republicans stay united and put America first, we can govern with strength, compassion, and common sense. Tonight, Mr. Speaker, tonight, we will reopen the government and liberate the Schumer hostages. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, a member of the Appropriations Committee, Mrs. Torres.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition of this deeply flawed bill because the American people deserve better. Since Trump returned to office, Republicans have created an affordability nightmare, a mass transfer of hard-earned taxpayers' dollars to billionaires. In my district alone, more than 350,000 people are facing skyrocketing healthcare costs or cuts to critical services. Republicans shut down the government instead of finding bipartisan solutions to keep care affordable and took a 7-week paid hiatus during doubling healthcare costs for working families, cutting off food assistance right before Thanksgiving, and letting Trump spend his holidays
50 more likes, guys? Double tap that screen. We need
enriching
50 more
billionaires,
likes.
cozying up to dictators, and building himself a new ballroom, all while taking down. Shameful, shameful, shameful. House Republicans should be here doing their jobs, not making life harder for working families. I urge a no vote.
Members are advised to direct their comments to the chair and not to engage in personalities toward the president. The gentlewoman from Connecticut reserves.
Mr. Speaker, the Democrats rejecting a clean CR, shutting the government down, creating all the havoc, the pain and suffering for our fellow Americans is so obviously disingenuous. They never vote against clean CRs. Never. For 4 years under Biden, you all didn't reject one clean CR. Chuck Schumer, in 44 years, never rejected a clean CR. So, Mr. Speaker, what's it about? They say policy. They put forward a proposal, Mr. Chairman. They said it's about health care for illegals. They repeal work requirements for able-bodied adults. That's a 80-20 issue in this country. They put forward a spending bill of $1.5 trillion. That's twice the discretionary budget. Mr. Chairman, they'd be spending more money than we've ever spent outside of COVID. That's their counter proposal. It's not only disingenuous, it's unserious. So what's it about? It's about politics. It's about resisting and fighting and undermining Donald Trump.
Let me fix this real quick. Hold
They're not fighting and resisting Donald Trump. They're undermining the will of the American people that gave Trump the presidency, Trump, and gave him the mandate of the America First agenda. So you're not resisting us. You're posturing and placating the radical left. And you are holding back what the American people wanted, and that was a new direction for this country. I yield back.
Members are reminded to please direct their comments only to the chair. The gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New Jersey, the distinguished ranking member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Mr. Pallone.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want my colleagues to understand that when the Affordable Care Act was adopted, it was adopted for middle-class people who could not afford health insurance. They had no other option. They had nowhere to go. You just would end up without health insurance. I have constituents coming to me now crying because their insurance is going from $500 a month to $1,500 a month. That's an increase of $1,000 a month. Who could afford that? No one in the middle class. At the end of 2024 last year, during a Democratic administration, the number of insured Americans was at a record high of about 95%. Democrats worked for that. Then Trump comes in, the Republicans in.
Continue to double tap that screen, guys. Get the likes up. Double tap that screen and click the 3 dots to the thumbs up. Appreciate you, Bob.
Tax credits. So what's going to happen? More and more people have no health insurance. That's the bottom line. They will not have health insurance. And the Republicans don't seem to care. But I want you to know that the Democrats care and will continue to fight for you.
The gentleman yields. The gentlewoman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from Guam, my very good friend, Mr. Moreland.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you to my friend from Oklahoma. Mr. Speaker, Guam is home to 3,372 federal employees, more than 43,000 SNAP recipients, and over 9,000 WIC recipients, and more than 20,000 veterans, all of whom have been impacted by this shutdown. If we continue to put politics over a country, my constituents will continue to suffer. Simply put, this gets us back on track, ensures funding for those who need it is in place, and turns the lights back on. This bill ensures that families receive the assistance they need, veterans have access to care, and our island is reimbursed for the sacrifice we made to keep federal programs running during this difficult time. I urge my colleagues to support this bill and to deliver for American people. The time for deliberation is when the government is open and people have the assistance they need. I reserve.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Massachusetts, the distinguished ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Neal.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank the gentlelady. Mr. Speaker, the destruction that is taking place in America's healthcare system during these 10 months is unbelievable. They've eviscerated the National Institutes of Health. They've cut back on the Centers for Disease Control, billions of dollars from Medicaid for a tax cut for the wealthy. Wait till you see what's coming to America's hospitals after the next election. It's so contrived they waited until after the election to implement it. 24 million people are likely to lose health insurance if we don't implement these tax credits as suggested. The emergency room is going to be back in full force now because this is where people will go for their health care. All of this is taking place to justify a tax cut for people at the very top. And here's the real kicker. Our Republican colleagues of fiscal probity borrowed the money for the tax cuts. In 2017, it's $2.4 trillion. In the last tax bill, almost $4 trillion is borrowed for a tax cut for wealthy people. Whatever happened to the fiscal soundness that the Republican Party used to lecture everybody on? And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The gentlewoman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to my very good friend, the distinguished gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Muser.
The gentleman is recognized.
If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe, guys. Subscribe.
We would have the fiction side over there and the nonfiction side over here. The only thing that's not
fiction, however, is their consistent criticism of the healthcare system known as Obamacare that they created. That's what this fight seems to be about. And that's the one end of things that is truthful. Today, Mr. Speaker, after 6 weeks of no pain, or excuse me, lots of pain and no gain, they're gonna vote again to keep the government closed. They're gonna vote again. They're whipping their votes so they would not be paying federal workers. They won't be funding essential programs like SNAP and undo the chaos at our airports. Okay, I spent the last 43 days in my district talking with these groups, talking with SNAP, talking with Head Start, seeing their pain, realizing it, understanding it. Some of my colleagues did the same, but shockingly, they're still going to vote to keep the government closed and keep this funding from being delivered. It's time to fix the damage the Democrats have caused. With this vote tonight, Republicans will restore SNAP payments. We'll get TSA and air traffic control.
Yield the gentleman an additional 15 seconds.
And you know what, thank you, Chairman. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? Yesterday was Veterans Day. Veterans didn't fight for the red. They didn't fight for the blue. They fought for the red, white, and blue. Maybe tonight we can follow their example. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Del Bene.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill fails to address the fundamental needs of families across our country. Americans have made it crystal clear that affordability is their #1 concern. President Trump and Republicans promised to lower costs on day one, and that's been one big broken promise. Healthcare premiums are skyrocketing because Republicans refuse to extend the ACA tax credits, causing healthcare costs to go up for everyone. Over 4 million people will be forced off their coverage next year because it's too expensive. This is on top of soaring prices for food, energy, and housing. It's unacceptable for the wealthiest nation in the world. Republicans who say they support affordable health care should be standing up for their constituents rather than following in line behind President Trump. I'm going to keep fighting for affordable health care and lower costs. The American people deserve better. I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields. The gentlewoman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield 90 seconds to my very good friend, the distinguished gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gooden.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Throughout this sham and shame of a shutdown, we've heard so many lies from the Democrats. And over the last 45 days, and especially the last 45 minutes, I've heard them say this is an evil bill. Republicans don't care about the disabled. Trump is the worst president in history for children. They've said that Republicans are to blame for the fentanyl crisis. Republicans shouldn't take photos with veterans. January 6th, of course they mentioned that. Republicans are corrupt, and they've said that Republicans are starving kids. What they haven't said is the one thing that this bill does, which is open up the government. Not one Democrat is getting up here saying this bill opens the government. So let me remind them and my colleagues and the American people, this bill opens the government tonight. And the American people have Republicans to thank for ending this shutdown and opening the government. I urge a yes vote. I am proud to vote yes. And I am so disappointed in my Democratic colleagues, because for the life of me, throughout my time in the House, I've heard them talk about how wonderful it is to keep the government open and that a shutdown is so bad and can never happen. And tonight they won't even admit that this bill opens the government, and this is what we need for this country tonight. So I urge a yes vote, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Oklahoma reserves. The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Barragan.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I oppose the Republican spending bill that makes health care more expensive for hardworking Americans. While Republicans were on their 7-week-plus vacation, all our constituents were receiving notices of premium increases. A constituent of mine, a lifelong educator, has been told that her premiums will jump from $383 to nearly $1,000. Meanwhile, Trump and Republicans can find money for a fancy ballroom. They can give tax breaks to billionaires. And they even included millions of dollars in cash payouts in this bill for 8 Republican senators. If anyone else in government gave themselves millions in taxpayer money, they would go to prison. But for Americans trying to afford health care, not $1 in tax credits. House Democrats are united against this corrupt bill and will keep fighting to protect America's health care. I urge my colleagues to reject this bill. I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields. The gentleman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume. Mr. Speaker, it's been an interesting debate. Frankly, as a couple of my colleagues have suggested, a lot of the rhetoric on the other side hasn't had much to do with the legislation in front of us. My friends chose all on their own to shut the government down 43 days ago. During that time, soldiers have had to worry about getting paid. The only reason they were paid is the President of the United States managed to pull a rabbit out of the hat twice, or we've had military families completely unpaid. We have our air traffic controllers. Most of us flew here today or yesterday or in recent days. They're keeping the skies as safe as they can, but they haven't gotten paid. We're in this Capitol building. We're under the protection of the Capitol Police. They do a splendid job. They keep doing their job. They haven't been paid. We have people that are in desperate need of some of the services that this government has promised to give them. SNAP and WIC. That's at risk unless we pass this legislation tonight. So we can have all these debates about all these other issues. As a matter of fact, my friend, the Speaker, his counterpart in the United States Senate, the Majority Leader, and the President said, when you open the government, we'll be happy to talk to you about some of these issues. But you're not going to shut down the government, punish the American people, put people's lives at risk, and think we're going to sit down and negotiate with you under those circumstances. That is not going to happen. We told you 43 days ago, from bitter experience, government shutdowns don't work. They never achieve the objective that you announced. And guess what? You haven't achieved that objective yet, and you're not going to. We did the same thing twice, so I'm not saying that we've got clean hands over here. You guys did it on DACA, didn't work here. Not going to work here. Only people that have suffered have been the American people, the people that we're all here to serve. So let's keep the focus on getting the government back open. I would also add, and I appreciate this very much, there have been robust discussions back and forth, and we have 3 appropriations bills attached to this. They're appropriations bills that do important things. The Ag bill will make sure that people that rely on WIC and SNAP don't have to worry about another government shutdown between now and September 30th of next year. The Ledge Branch bill will make sure that the Capitol Police and everybody else at staff that allow this chamber to function don't have to worry about not getting paid until September 30th of next year. And obviously, military construction and, more importantly, veterans rely on benefits commitments we have made. Passage of this bill make sure that those commitments will be fulfilled between now and September 30th next year. And we buy the time to sit down and rationally and responsibly negotiate other appropriations bills that we can bring, I hope, on a bipartisan basis to this floor to keep the government open. So I would just ask my friends to reflect on that. I hope some of you feel the weight of that decision. I know you do. And I hope you can vote to keep the government open. There's no excuse to shut it down. The United States Senate operated to keep it open in a bipartisan fashion. Now, it took them a long time to do it, but they got there. Let's not follow that example. Let's follow when they finally got the job done, they sent us a product. It's not a perfect product. It's got some things in it I don't like, but frankly, if we kept the government open, we would have never been in this situation in the first place. So I would just ask my friends to remember their constituents. I know they think about them. I know they're serious about the points they make. Reopen the government, raise your issues. Let's see if we can come to a negotiated settlement. But let's not punish the American people. A no vote on this, again, means soldiers and military families don't get paid. A no vote means that people in need of SNAP and WIC might not get it. A no vote means the people that allow us to come here and debate and work won't get paid either. I can go down the list of horrors. It's pretty simple. This is a vote about two things. Opening the government of the United States, which you willfully tried to shut down, fortunately did not succeed in that in this chamber, but some of your colleagues, using arcane Senate rules, did manage to do it, but finally came to their senses. You ought to pay attention to those people. They said, enough is enough. Let's reopen the government. I would urge my colleagues to do that today, and I hope it's done in a bipartisan way. With that, I reserve the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman reserves and members.
All right, folks, we will get right back out to the floor there as the final speeches taking place before this in-demand
The final speeches,
vote.
guys.
We want to let you know
They
that
finna get ready
President
to
Trump says on his official planner that he will be signing the bill here around 9:45 p.m. Eastern. We will be bringing that to you when that does happen on Live Now from Fox. You will see it in full. But of course, what needs to happen is for it to actually pass there on the floor. It is expected to do so. But right now we are continuing to listen to more lawmakers. Let's listen in right now.
41% are living with medical debt. The American people are simply not making it. Not only is that crisis real, it is a crisis that Republicans promised to solve. Voters believe them. And now, after a 54-day hiatus, what are Republicans doing? They're voting to raise the cost of living. They're voting to make it even harder to get by. Not by some marginal amount. They are doubling, tripling, and quadrupling monthly premiums. And what's the defense? They are looking people in the eye and flat out gaslighting them. Costs aren't up, costs are down. Trump says, I don't want to hear about the affordability. Well, get used to hearing about it. You're going to hear about it a lot because people are feeling it every single day. People can't make rent. They can't afford their prescriptions. They can't afford to take their kid to a doctor. They can't find childcare, and when they find it, they can't afford that either. Grocery and utility bills are spiking. This is the crisis of our time, and it's about to get exponentially worse because the GOP's craven allegiance to billionaires over working people. The cost of living crisis is not fake news. It's not a perception issue. It is daily life for the people that we all represent. So let's do something about it. Let's reject this budget. Let's stop the healthcare cuts. Let's stop the premium hikes. Let's stop the hospital closures. And let's stop the billionaire giveaways. I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields. The gentlewoman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, this bill fails to prevent health care costs from skyrocketing. It fails to address the crisis of affordability. It fails to keep our promise to veterans. It provides $1 million jackpot to 8 senators. It fails to protect Congress's power of the purse. I encourage my colleagues to vote no, and I have the honor of yielding 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, our distinguished Democratic leader, Mr. Hakeem Jeffries.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the distinguished gentlelady, the top Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee, for yielding and for her steadfast leadership on behalf of working families, hard-working American taxpayers in the great state of Connecticut and all across America. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to this woefully inadequate spending bill that fails to decisively address the Republican health care crisis and fails to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans. Mr. Speaker, before I say anything further, let me say to our men and women in uniform, to our active duty troops, to our hardworking federal employees, to our civil servants, to our TSA agents, to our Capitol Police, to our staff here in the House of Representatives, to our air traffic controllers, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the American people each and every day. And it's our promise to all of you that we will continue to work hard to make sure that you are treated with the dignity and respect that you deserve. In a year in which the Trump administration has gone after hardworking federal employees relentlessly, including firing more than 200,000 federal employees prior to the start of the Trump Republican shutdown. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Donald Trump and Republicans made the decision to shut the government down, the longest shutdown in American history. Would rather do that than provide health care that's affordable to working class Americans, middle class Americans, and hardworking American taxpayers. All across the country, I'm certain that there are people in America asking the question, where do we go from here? House Democrats have a simple answer. We will continue to fight to lower the high cost of living. House Democrats will continue to fight to address the healthcare crisis that Republicans have created. And House Democrats will continue to fight to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans. This fight is not over. We're just getting started. We'll fight today. We'll fight tomorrow. We'll fight this week. We'll fight next week. We'll fight this month. We'll fight next month. We'll fight until we win this battle for the American people. That's our commitment as House Democrats. And there's only two ways that this fight will end. Only two ways, Mr. Speaker, that this fight will end. Either Republicans finally decide to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits this year, or the American people will throw Republicans out of their jobs next year and end the speakership of Donald J. Trump once and for all. That's how this fight ends. Mr. Speaker, during this painful Trump Republican shutdown, what we've seen is two different philosophies in terms of how to govern for the American people. The Democratic Party philosophy is clear. We are ready, willing, and able to find bipartisan common ground anytime, any place, to enact spending agreements that actually make life better for the American people. But in order to do that, we need to have partners on the other side of the aisle who are actually willing to find a bipartisan path forward. But what we've seen from Republicans from the very beginning of this presidency is a my way or the highway approach. That's been the Republican philosophy. Jam your extremism down the throats of the American people. That's what we've seen from day one of this presidency. That's the reason why the government has been shut down by Republicans and Donald Trump for the longest period of time in American history. What have we seen from Donald Trump and Republicans during this shutdown? A consistent unwillingness to actually find common ground in order to make life better for the American people. Donald Trump, during this shutdown, found the time to play golf week after week after week. Donald Trump found the time to pardon serial fraudsters like George Santos and Rudolph Giuliani. Donald Trump found the time to meet with the Chinese Communist Party. Donald Trump found the time to destroy the East Wing of the White House. Donald Trump found the time to extort $230 million from the Department of Justice so he could line his pockets. Donald Trump found the time to bail out Argentina with $40 billion. Donald Trump found the time to rip away SNAP benefits from 42 million Americans. Mr. Speaker, these extremists are not like us. They're not like us.
They're not like us.
They have zero interest in fighting hard to make life better for the American people. Their philosophy, my way or the highway, our response, get lost. We're going to continue to fight hard on behalf of the American people. In the midst of a healthcare crisis and a cost of living crisis that is very real, despite what Donald Trump, the leader of the Republican Party, has to say. He claims there is no affordability crisis in the United States of America. But why would anyone believe anything that Donald Trump or Republicans have to say on this issue? Because throughout 2024, before the election, Republicans in the House and in the Senate and Donald Trump on the campaign trail spent all of their time saying that costs were going to go down on day one. But costs haven't gone down. Republicans haven't done a damn thing to lower the high cost of living. Costs haven't gone down in this country. Costs have gone up. Inflation is on the way up. Housing costs out of control. Grocery costs out of control. Electricity bills out of control. Healthcare costs skyrocketing out of control. And in the midst of this affordability crisis, seeing this, Democrats said, we've got to fight to make sure that we extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits so that tens of millions of people, working class folks, middle class folks, people in rural America, working class America, small town America,
Ballin.
the
Yeah, he
heartland
said
of
not
America,
like us
black and brown communities all
for
throughout
13 months.
America don't experience premium increases that in some cases will go up by $1,000 or $2,000 per year. In many cases, month after month after month, $1,000 or $2,000 per month, tens of thousands of dollars per year. Unacceptable in this country, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And this is in the midst of a Republican healthcare crisis. Republicans enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, ripped health insurance away from 14 million Americans. As a result of Republican policies, hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing all across America, including in rural parts of this great country of ours. And now, because of Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans are at risk of being unable to afford to go see a doctor when they need one. In this country, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, it can't be the case that healthcare is simply a privilege for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. Mr. Speaker, that's the Republican perspective. We believe as Democrats that healthcare has to be a right, and a right that's affordable and available to every single American in the United States. That's what this fight is all about. And that's what the fight will continue to be about as we move forward. Many of my Republican colleagues have suggested that they want to deal with the healthcare affordability issue, that they want to address the Republican healthcare crisis that's devastating people all across this country. Well, we have an opportunity for you to do so. There's a discharge petition connected to legislation that House Democrats have introduced to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for 3 years, because we believe that working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans deserve the same level of certainty that Republicans always provide to the wealthy, the well-off, and their well-connected donors. Working class Americans deserve that level of certainty. So join us in extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. It's not too late. We're in the midst of open enrollment, but the tax credits expire on December 31st. And we will stay on this issue until we get this issue resolved for everyday Americans. Mr. Speaker, as I close, I've had the opportunity, as many of us do, to serve in the United States Congress with legendary figures, too numerous to mention. Legendary members, of course, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, the great Jim Clyburn, Maxine Waters, Elijah Cummings, Charlie Rangel, our own Marcy Kaptur, the longest serving woman in the history of the United States House of Representatives. We've all had the opportunity to serve with legendary members, John Dingell, too numerous to mention. But one can't call that role without calling the name of the great John Lewis. I had the distinct honor of serving with John Lewis for several terms. Many of us here in the House of Representatives did. I'll never forget.
Can we get the lights up past 900, guys? Double tap that screen if you're on the mobile device.
John Lewis for the first
or
time
click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up, guys.
And he called me over to see him on the House floor, and he just asked me a simple question. He said, "Are you the new guy?" And I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Lewis, I am." And he said, "Well, we're colleagues now. You don't have to call me Mr. Lewis, you can call me John." I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Lewis, I understand." And then he said to me, "You're from Brooklyn, right?" Now, Mr. Speaker, I gotta be honest, I was tempted to say, Brooklyn is always in the house. But instead, since my mother raised me with some sense, Lenita Jeffries, I said, "Yes, sir, I'm from Brooklyn." And then he said something to me that I've never forgotten. He said, "Well, I hear some positive things about you from your predecessor, but Washington, D.C., young man, can be a rough place. So I don't want you to get into any trouble unless it's good trouble." And I just wanted to stop by on the House floor to make sure it was clear to the American people that the spirit of John Lewis lives amongst House Democrats, and we will continue to get into good trouble to make their life better. That's our commitment to every single American all across this country from this day and for every day moving forward. And it was John Lewis who said to us that ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, and maybe even many lifetimes. And each one of us in every generation must do our part. Mr. Lewis, we love you.
Thank you.
We were blessed by our opportunity to serve with you, and House Democrats are here to do our part. We're in this fight until we win this fight for the American people. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities towards the president. The gentlewoman from Connecticut has 30 seconds remaining and is recognized.
I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman from Connecticut yields. The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's my distinct pleasure to yield the balance of our time to the distinguished Speaker of the House, my very good friend and a person I admire greatly.
1 minute.
I'm actually just going to hold you to 1 minute, Mr. Speaker. My good friend, the gentleman from Louisiana, Speaker Mike Johnson.
The gentleman from
All right,
Louisiana.
so we got Mike Johnson coming up now.
I want to thank my friend Chairman Cole's done an extraordinary job in this process. And Mr. Speaker, we all know why we're here. House Democrats voted to shut the government down. It was 54 days ago when we had that vote, September 19th. And since that time, Senate Democrats have voted 14 times to close the government. Republicans voted a collective 15 times to open the government for the people, and the Democrats voted that many times to close it. And then they admitted, many of them, and we could name them here, but I'm not going to take the time, they admitted that they were using the American people as leverage in this political game. They knew that it would cause pain, and they did it anyway. The whole exercise was pointless. It was wrong, and it was cruel. In mere moments, I want you to watch the board. They're going to do it again. I'm going to guess for you that most of our Democrat colleagues are going to vote again to close the government, again to take food out of the mouths of families that need it, again to deny pay to federal employees, again to stall flights and cancel airlines and do all the rest that they've done. But we are not going to let them succeed in that gambit. And that's right.
Double tap that screen, guys. We're almost to 1,000
While the
likes.
Democrats keep
Double
voting to
tap
shut the
that
government
screen.
down, Republicans are going to vote to open it back up. And with that, we're going to get the American government and working for the people as they deserve. I'm going to close with this. You know, as Speaker, you have the ability to talk as long as you want, but I'm not going to do that tonight. We're not going to waste any more time of the people. I'm just going to say this. I think that everybody needs to remember this one simple thing. From the very beginning of this whole ordeal, on the Republican side, we operated in good faith. We offered a clean, nonpartisan CR. We were honest and transparent with the American people from the very beginning, and every single day of the shutdown, we went out and looked right into the camera with a press conference and told the American people the simple truth. We have done for the people what has been right and just and truthful. And in the end, that is what God honors always. Don't forget it. We need to get this government open as soon as possible, and I'm going to yield back the remainder of my time so we can do that. The American people demand it and deserve it. My friends, let's get this done. Thank you. I yield back.
We need 25 more likes, guys. Double tap that screen and click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're 25 likes away from 1,000 likes, guys. Double tap that screen.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Oklahoma has 3 minutes remaining and is recognized.
I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 873, the previous question is ordered. The question is on the motion by the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Cole. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chairs, the
shout
ayes
out
have
to
it.
everybody that hit that like button. We hit 1K on the like, guys.
Mr. Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
15 minutes, guys. In 15 minutes, we'll know if the government is going to stay closed or if it will open.
For you, again, keeping the tally up as we bring you the coverage as the debate just wrapping up on the floor. And we heard just moments ago from Speaker Johnson saying that it is time to reopen the government. Now, a simple majority is going to trigger the long awaited here, 43 days from the shutdown to be ending. President Trump has already signaled, him and his staff, that he will be signing this bill tonight. So we will again be providing you that coverage here on Live Now from Fox. He is expected to be signing this around 9:45 p.m. Eastern. Back out live to the floor right now as we watch the tally continue to come in with a 15-minute vote here that is open. We will wait and see. Right now, the voting all on party lines right here. So in just a little bit, we will continue to discuss this. But again, 43 days in the making, and it looks like now that it is now just moments away from an end to a government shutdown, and it will be official with the swipe of a signature from President Trump a little bit later at the White House. We should also let you know that news was made during this as well, as we learned from Speaker Johnson that he said today that he plans to hold a House vote next week on a measure mandating the full disclosure of Justice Department files related to the late sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Speaker Johnson announced those plans just hours after
More on the Epstein, guys.
Arizona rep completed a discharge petition mandating a floor vote on the Epstein measure. So that was some news that was made just a little bit ago, but we wanted to bring that to you just in case you were not with us a little bit earlier as we were discussing that here. But now the government shutdown
Okay, while we wait on them to tally up, and they're still talking about the Epstein files, guys, let's go here so we can hear more about the Epstein files, guys, in Trump name being in them.
To hide the Epstein files has failed. The President of the United States mounting a last-minute campaign to try to turn Republicans who had signed on to release the complete Epstein files, but they defied him. And tonight, the motion moves forward to a full House vote, something Speaker Johnson had delayed for nearly 2 months. Delayed this Epstein vote by nearly 2 months by refusing to swear in the newest member of Congress, Adelita Grijalva. And here's why, from the Republican who is leading the charge to release the Epstein files.
I've already had a couple Republicans tell my office privately that they're going to vote for it, and I think that could snowball.
Snowball. He's talking about the full vote, that tonight's move makes a reality, that vote is going to happen. He's talking about the full release of about 300 gigabytes of never-before-seen files about Jeffrey Epstein. And this comes as the House Oversight Committee today released a trove of explosive Epstein documents. Now, these new documents that we have show that Jeffrey Epstein was talking about President Trump multiple times in emails, despite Trump repeatedly denying he was in the Epstein files. Of course, we've long known that they were incredibly close friends, but Trump had denied he was in the files. Even after Attorney General Pam Bondi told Trump he was in the files, something, again, because of their friendship, he surely knew himself already, he continued to deny it.
Did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
Well, she had. And today, Attorney General Pam Bondi was seen leaving the White House after a meeting with the FBI director, other top officials, and Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert in the Situation Room. Why Lauren Boebert called to the Situation Room? Well, because she is one of 4 Republicans in the House who signed on this petition today to release the full Epstein files. And Trump also played phone tag today with another one of the 4 Republicans, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, throughout the day. The reason is that Mace and Boebert's votes are crucial, as was the vote of Adelita Grijalva. She was actually the deciding vote on releasing the files. So, being closed for 2 months meant they didn't have the votes, not till she was sworn in. In fact, Epstein survivors were actually there in attendance for Congresswoman Grijalva's swearing in because of how important she is to the Epstein files. But what the House has now, all of this new information that we're getting tonight, and it's new and important. It's important to mention it is only a minuscule fraction of what we are now one step closer to actually seeing. But in that minuscule fraction are important new details. And our reporters are still going through these new emails and documents that we have. But we know that they include exchanges like this one. Epstein emails now convicted accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell in part, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted spent hours at the House with him. He has never once been mentioned. Maxwell responds, I have been thinking about that. And in June 2019, after Trump made a state visit to the United Kingdom, where he was welcomed by none other than the former Prince Andrew, Epstein wrote to Trump's former White House strategist Steve Bannon, quote, Prince Andrew and Trump today, too funny. Recall Prince Andrew's accuser came out of Mar-a-Lago, to which Bannon replied, can't believe nobody is making that connective tissue.
Wow.
Now, Trump, of course, has not been accused of any wrongdoing in connection with Epstein's crimes. But the president responded on social media today, and I quote, the Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Of course, as always, when he calls it a hoax, it is important to point out that raping underage girls and being a registered sex offender for pedophilia is not a hoax. And Jeff Zeleny is out front at the White House to begin our coverage tonight. Jeff, what more are you learning about this extraordinary pressure campaign that the White House is mounting on Republicans voting to release the Epstein files? They're not really even trying to keep it secret at this point.
Well, the White House actually sought to explain this away as transparency, that they were briefing a member of Congress. That, of course, is Lauren Boebert, Republican of Colorado, as you mentioned, Aaron. But this was no
ordinary briefing. We have never seen anything the likes of which rolled out like this. The Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, who of course was the one who questioned Ghislaine Maxwell a couple times a few months ago. He was on hand. The FBI director was on hand, a few other aides as well, and trying to pressure the Congresswoman to not sign that discharge petition, to take her name off of it. But that is only the beginning of this White House pressure campaign. For the next week now, Speaker Johnson has announced that there will be a vote of the full House next week to release the files, calling on the Department of Justice to release the files. That will not be the end of the story. Of course, the Senate would also have to vote, and that is a tall order. However, the number of Republicans who would decide to vote for this is very concerning to this White House. You heard Thomas Massie there, the congressman from Kentucky, who's leading the charge. He said there could be a groundswell. That is what the White House is hoping to avoid here. So for all of the other issues going on with the government shutdown likely to end this evening, so many other challenges on the president's plate, here at the White House, there was an all-out scramble today to try and stop this from going forward. But now that there is going to be a vote next week, this pressure campaign, I'm told, is going to keep up. They're trying to get other Republicans to not sign on to this. But Aaron, the vote next week will be very significant because, of course, people have their own careers to think about here. And the Epstein files cuts broadly across both parties. Aaron?
It certainly does. Certainly there's some basic morality. If nothing else. Jeff Zeleny, thank you very much. Sure. Out front now, Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw. He sits on the House Oversight Committee, where, of course, those emails that we saw came from today. And the White House said, Congressman, of those emails, quote, prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. You've had a chance to go through them. I know they are a tiny fraction of what we don't know, right? That's still at the FBI. But nonetheless, they are still a lot of documents. Do you believe that they prove something else here?
Well, we don't know, but I think if you look at President Trump's behavior today, the way that he is absolutely panicking and desperately trying to get Republicans to take their name off the discharge petition to prevent a vote, he certainly seems like someone who's guilty of something. And that's why we need to see all of the files, have full transparency, and let the American people decide.
So I want to read again one of the exchanges that the committee released today, and a bit more of it. This was an email that Epstein sent to Ghislaine Maxwell in 2011.
More of the emails, guys.
I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted, spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. To which Maxwell responded, I have been thinking about that. Now, for anyone watching, they want to know what is that redacted name? And just to be clear, we know in the broader Epstein files, there are many, many, many women, hundreds of women mentioned. But this particular woman, in this case, we understand to be Virginia Giuffre from Republicans on your committee. They're saying that's who it refers to. She, of course, worked at Mar-a-Lago before working for Epstein, and she has not accused Trump of any wrongdoing. In her book, posthumously published a bit ago, she did not accuse him. Do you have a full understanding of the context of this email, Congressman?
Well, first, it was disappointing that earlier today, Republicans on the committee said that that name was Virginia Giuffre. As oversight Democrats, we're committed to protecting the anonymity of the victims and survivors. So I'm not going to confirm that that's the name that was redacted. But look, the answer to your question is we don't know. But the other answer is that's why we need to release the files. And as soon as next week, it sounds like, every member of the House of Representatives will have to go on record and decide and vote whether they're going to assist Donald Trump in this cover-up. And I hope my Republican colleagues will listen to the survivors that we've heard from and join with us in calling for full transparency.
The new documents came from the Epstein estate, right? To your committee, they came from the Epstein estate. I know you had subpoenaed these documents back in August. You released these today, right? So obviously this is the middle of November. What's happening behind the scenes on your committee right now?
Well, the documents that were released today were part of a tranche of documents that were received relatively recently. So the committee hasn't been in possession of these documents for a long time. And a large volume of documents comes in periodically from the estate, and staff, Republicans and Democrats, go through those documents, and that's the process that's playing out here. Look, this drip, drip, drip is really bad for Donald Trump. It would make a lot more sense for him to just say, let's release the full files and get it all out there and get it over with. Why doesn't he want to do that? What's in those files that he wants to allow this drip, drip, drip of bad news to continue?
And
that's wild, y'all. Back over here to the votes, guys, to see what's going on.
A mantra right from the beginning, and Republicans have been saying we had a clean, continuing resolution so that we could kick the can down the road a little bit to talk through these issues. And as you know, the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, did say he would bring this up in December for discussion. By the way, Speaker Johnson has not promised the same thing. So through it all, we have to remember we have both the Senate and the House of Representatives, and they don't necessarily think alike. And I'm just looking at the numbers here, and this is going to be a close vote.
Yeah, it really, really will be close. And even though now we have 3 Democrats that have went on the Republican side, they'll be able to say, though, Brian, that it's bipartisan.
Right. I think Republicans will give credit, as they did to those 7 Democrat senators and the 1 independent senator who moved over. I think they'll make the same claim about what is 3 Democrats here, as I look at the graphic or the live shot, who have moved over. It'll be interesting to see who the 3 are, and obviously they're going to be challenged by the media and others to explain why they voted with Republicans. But the idea that you would go 43 days without solving a problem, or at least to say, I think we could come together and work together on this, really, I think, speaks to the division in Congress right now, and the idea that we're getting very, very close again to midterms. And I think this was a way of highlighting for the United States.
It's very close, guys. 24 seconds left.
The Republicans
202 to
still have
201.
their arms around the problems.
And Brian, in the last couple of weeks, President Trump was obviously getting frustrated that the shutdown was continuing, and even going to say, hey, let's end the filibuster. Let's just go back to simple majority and really, while we have the time, start passing some of the sweeping legislation. That didn't seem to really excite Senator Thune and others. Is that what is pretty much needed now for President Trump, to end the filibuster, to really maybe push through some of the agenda items that he campaigned for?
Well, I would make 2 points. One is that a lot of people thought that John Thune would march to the Donald Trump drum 100% of the time. And he proved with the filibuster idea, breaking the filibuster, that he is indeed marching to his own drum, at least on that issue. Sometimes when there is an idea that you need to set aside something that's in place for a reason, like the filibuster legislation, or the rules, I should say, that changing it for a particular vote tends to come back and haunt you. And so what you can accomplish having, press the nuclear option will come back in the opposite direction. And I think John Thune saw that and said, hey, I'm not going to go along with that. And by the way, as I'm looking at the voting here, I see 1 Republican.
Yeah, that's very, very true there. Yeah, like we do have that 1 Republican now that is went on the Democratic side. I would have to venture a guess that maybe Representative Massey, I'll have to see there. But okay, now we have 2 Republicans. Look at that.
Yep. So you have 3 Dems who have moved over, 2 Republicans who have moved over, and you have just a very few non-voters at this point, 13 in total, and presumably they're somewhere around the floor ready to vote. There's always some jockeying, Mike, to be the last one to press the button and to vote, and we'll see what happens here.
You know, Brian, you were speaking earlier, just talking about how we live in these divisive times, and everything is so partisan. Where, I mean, look at the numbers here. Look how tight it is. 216, 207 right now. Are gone are the days of where you would see maybe a huge majority voting on either side. Are we totally away from that? Is it just pretty much all going to be, you know, for the foreseeable future, party line voting? For the most part,
I think for the near future, Mike, yes. I don't see how that breaks over the next few years. But the pendulum swings in this country and has since the founding of the republic. You know, all those years ago, as we hit the nearly the 250th, I should say, birthday of the United States. So they're all through those years. We've had different Congresses voting different ways. We're in the 119th Congress right now. But I would say to you, to answer your question, it is a difficult period where Democrats are a block, Republicans are a block, and you can see as we watch this live from the House floor, very few people are willing to break party lines to vote with the other side. And you have 6 Dems who have done that and 2 Republicans, which is interesting.
And there we go, Brian. We're looking there on the floor. So they do have enough votes right now to reopen the government. There, breaking news as we are talking. The
government will open, guys.
It is ultimately go to the desk here in about an hour and 45 minutes. President Trump will be signing it, and we'll be providing our viewers that coverage from inside the Oval. Just getting close to the 10 p.m. hour there when that will be happening. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of questions now. I think as soon as it was happening in the last moments of the shutdown with the Epstein files, but now that has come back, and it looks like House is going to have the vote on the floor sometime next week. Seems like Speaker Johnson just wants to get that one out of the way.
Thank you, Anton.
Oh, absolutely. And then time has expired.
Antoine.
But as you know, time seems never to really expire on the House floor or the Senate floor. So you still have 2 people with votes to cast here. But actually, you know, this is we thought this was going to be a slim passage. It is slim, but the Speaker has the votes he needs.
Yeah, let's just listen in right here for just a moment to get that final count.
The motion is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
And there it is, the clapping on the Republican side is now official there. And we are waiting to see Speaker Johnson, if he will be speaking to the media. We'll be bringing that to our viewers. But still with us here, Brian Sobel, as we just saw that happen in real time now, and just moments away from the president to sign this. So I think a lot of people wondering too now, Brian, when we get to the end of January, do you think we could see a potential another shutdown?
Let us hope not, but the can has been kicked down the road. And as I like to say, when it stops rolling, somebody has to pick it up. And that'll be happening in January. But the whole point of a continuing resolution, if it works correctly, Mike, and it has been employed so many times, certainly in recent history, but in history, is to give breathing room for these people, breathing time for people to get in a room and work this out. I don't think that there's any upside to shutting the government down again in January. I don't think the Democrats are going to take that course of action. The Republicans shouldn't force it. And I think together they ought to get behind closed doors and solve this problem. This is what the American people want to see.
Thank you, Reed.
There we go. Brian Sobel, thanks so much for joining us. Always great to speak with you, and great we had you on for this record-breaking night. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was historic, and thank you for having me.
No problem. All right, everyone. And we will continue to follow everything happening on Capitol Hill. We do want to take a 2-minute break, though. Let's get one in before we have any speakers at the podium right there on the floor of the Capitol. So we'll take a 2-minute break. Be back with more.
Well, guys, it appears that the government is most definitely reopening. I don't know how y'all feel about that. I think it's a great thing. People weren't getting paid. People were missing out on their benefits and their monies. I mean, they opened back up the government, guys, after a record-breaking amount of time of the government being shut down, guys. They have reopened the government. I heard them say something about January. It may come up for a revote or something like that to where it could be shut down again. But at least for now, we get some form of satisfaction of them reopening the government, guys. All right, so we walked down the Epstein files, the Epstein emails that were released today. We most definitely I found a lot of information on that. Feel free to go do your own research and find out more about it. I gave you every bit that the mainstream media had to bring. I know a lot of y'all like to go do your own research, so go look through those files. They were saying something about a website you can go to view everything on the Epstein-Trump situation. I asked y'all, what do y'all think? Y'all think that Trump is in trouble due to them releasing these emails? His name most definitely appeared. They talked about him a lot, including placing him with Prince. What was his name? It wasn't Charles. It was the other one, the one that got removed from being a prince. I forget his name. Prince something. Andrews. That's his name. Prince Andrews. Yeah. Him and Prince, they most definitely tied them together. And then what was peculiar to me with them saying it's crazy how they don't put 2 and 2 together, guys. That was wild right there. Put 2 and 2 together. I mean, it doesn't get any more cut and dry than that. And the media feels like Trump may be hiding something, guys. He could be, because every time this comes up, he doesn't want to talk about it. The Republicans most definitely have been putting off releasing these files, even though that was something that Trump campaigned on, that may have been a big part of him getting elected, was being transparent with the Epstein files. But it seems like ever since they started saying his name was in there, we most definitely ain't getting them. But hey, it's going up for a vote, as far as them releasing the files. You seen one of the elects that was sworn in today said she will be voting yes to release those files. So it's a whole lot going on, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Most definitely double tap that screen. That's how you hit the like button, or you can click the 3 dots and hit the like button if you enjoyed the show today, man. We got over 1,000 likes. I appreciate each and every one of y'all, man. I hope that y'all come back. I'll most definitely be live again to cover everything they're talking about regarding the government being reopened and any other kind of news that comes across, guys. I appreciate all the new subscribers as well as my old one. We reached 55K today. That's 55,000 subscribers. I'm most definitely grateful for that. Shout out to everybody that's rocking with everybody on the sidewalk. And shout out to my sidewalk supporters that show up each and every time I press this button to go live, man. I'm most definitely nothing without y'all. So y'all be safe out there. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot of interviews going on, talking to the representatives, the senators, as well as the members of Congress, so feel free to look around and find those. And hey, if you don't, I'll most definitely have some for y'all tomorrow. All right, man, y'all have a great night. Blessings to everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. And yeah, man, it's time for me to make my grand exit like I usually do. Y'all already know how this go. Sidewalk gang, checking out. I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. Y'all be good. I'll see y'all tomorrow.